Hey guys, tonight we're going somewhere that feels a lot closer than medieval castles and plague streets, but in many ways even harder to imagine. A time when young men were shipped thousands of miles from home to fight in a country they barely knew, in a war they didn't understand, against an enemy they could rarely see. We're stepping into the chaos of the Vietnam War, at the height of one of its most brutal moments, the Tet Offensive of 1968. Forget the Hollywood explosions, the action hero bravado, the neat storylines where everything makes sense. The truth is far messier, far darker, and far more exhausting than any movie could ever capture. The reality is that if you were dropped into that world, with your clean clothes and soft bed waiting back at home, you wouldn't last a single day. So before we settle in, go ahead and dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan to get that low hum in the background. Get comfortable, because tonight isn't about adrenaline or action. It's about trying to feel what it was really like to wake up as a 19-year-old soldier, halfway across the globe, with no idea if you'll make it to tomorrow. Now take a deep breath, let the noise of the outside world fade for a while, and imagine it's January 30th, 1968. The good news, you're alive. The bad news, so is the war. You wake up before the sun does, not because you want to, but because sleep in the jungle doesn't last long. It never does. The air is already heavy, thick, with damp heat that clings to your skin like a second uniform. Your actual uniform is wet again because it's never dry. It's been days, maybe weeks, since you felt a piece of fabric that wasn't soaked through with sweat, rain, or the kind of humidity that turns cotton into a mould factory. You roll over on the ground and your body protests. Your spine pops, your knees ache, and your back is damp from the mud that seeped in overnight through your poncho. The bugs don't care that you tried to cover yourself. They found you anyway. Ants, mosquitoes, leeches. They always do. Your ears are ringing before you even remember why. Not from gunfire, not yet, but from the constant background noise of the jungle. It never shuts up. Birds screaming, monkeys barking, insects buzzing so loud it's like static. And under it all, the low hum of something else, something you can't quite name. The jungle sounds alive because it is, but none of it feels friendly. Every rustle in the leaves is a warning. Every snap of a branch could be an animal, or it could be someone crawling closer with an AK-47. Either way you flinch. There's no alarm clock, no church bell, no soft voice telling you to wake up. What you get instead is your sergeant's boot nudging your leg and a muttered order to get moving. He doesn't shout, not here. Voices carry in the trees. Too much noise and you've just announced breakfast to anyone waiting for you in the dark, so you push yourself up, groggy, disoriented, trying not to think about how little you actually slept. Maybe an hour, maybe two, broken into fragments between shifting on routes and swatting at bugs. It's not real rest. It's just closing your eyes until someone forces them open again. You rub at your face, and your hand comes away streaked with grime. Sweat mixed with dirt. Dirt mixed with yesterday's smoke. Smoke mixed with everything else that sticks to you out here. Soap isn't part of your daily life. Showers don't exist. Hygiene is whatever you can scrape off with the corner of your shirt. And even that feels pointless when 5 minutes later you're back to sweating through every pore. The smell is hard to describe, but impossible to ignore. It's sweat, mildew, and gun oil all layered together. It's the smell of men who haven't been clean in weeks, crammed together in a jungle that won't let anything dry out. When you look around, you don't see much, just shadows. The canopy is so thick it chokes the moonlight, and even as dawn inches closer, the sky is still a dull green glow filtered through endless leaves. Shapes move in the dimness. Other soldiers, just as groggy, just as tired, clutching their rifles like comfort blankets, because you don't put them down, not even to sleep. If you're smart, you've already tied yours to your wrist so it doesn't slide out of your grip when exhaustion takes over. It's not paranoia, it's survival. The guy next to you snores, drops his weapon, and someone else pays the price when a patrol slips through the tree line. That's the kind of lesson you only need to see once. Breakfast doesn't mean bacon and eggs. It means digging through your rucksack for a crumpled box of sea rations, if you still have one left. Maybe ham and lima beans, the kind everyone hates, but you'll choke it down anyway because it's calories. The can is greasy, dented, and you eat it cold because there's no time to heat it up. Lighting a fire would give away your position, and besides, the smoke would hang in the air like a signal flare. So you pry the lid open with the tip of your knife, shovel in a few forkfuls, and swallow hard against the taste of tin. Some guys skip eating altogether, just stuff down a few crackers or a chocolate bar, if they've saved one. Coffee is a dream. Milk is a myth. What you have is lukewarm water from your canteen, treated with iodine tablets that make it taste like swimming pool mixed with rust. You drink it anyway because not drinking isn't an option. Dehydration hits fast here, faster than you think, and the jungle doesn't forgive. Somewhere in the distance, a helicopter thuds overhead, blades chopping the air. You look up, but the trees are too thick to see it. You only hear it. That sound means supplies, or reinforcements, or someone else getting pulled out because they can't walk anymore. A few days ago, one of your guys had to be lifted after a fever spiked so high he couldn't even stand. Malaria maybe, or dysentery. Out here, it doesn't matter which. Once you're weak, you're done. The jungle eats the weak faster than the enemy does. Your body already itches before you've even stood up. The mosquitoes are relentless. You slap at your arms, your neck, your hands, but it doesn't help. They bite through fabric. They bite through repellent. They bite because that's what they do. The welts rise up red and angry, and you stop scratching only because you know open wounds are worse. If it's not mosquitoes, it's leashes. Tiny, slimy worms that cling to your legs when you cross a stream. They swell with your blood until they're bloated and black, and you have to rip them off, leaving trails of crimson behind. The first time it happens, you gag. The 10th time, you don't even flinch. You just flick them away and keep walking. That's life now. The weight on your back is already unbearable, and you haven't even started moving yet. The rucksack feels like a sack of bricks, stuffed with everything you might need and half the things you'll never touch. Ammunition, grenades, a couple cans of food, extra socks, poncho, entrenching tool, medical kit. 80 pounds give or take, plus the rifle in your hands. It digs into your shoulders, bruises your hips, rubs your skin raw under the straps. Every step will grind it deeper. By the end of the day, you'll feel like your spine is splintering. And still, it's not enough. It never is. There's always something you don't have, always something you wish you'd packed. And there's no store, no backup, no quick delivery if you forgot. What you carry is what you live with, or what you die with. As the light creeps through the trees, you finally see the faces of the men around you. They're all too young. Younger than they should be. 19, 20, maybe 21. Some look older, but it's not age. It's exhaustion. The kind that digs into your bones and never leaves. Eyes sunken, cheeks hollow, lips cracked from dehydration. No one looks like the posters back home. No one looks heroic. They just look like kids who haven't been allowed to stop moving for months. And that's exactly what they are. You don't talk much. Words are wasted here. A nod, a glance, a whispered order is all that's needed. Conversations happen in murmurs, and even those feel dangerous. The jungle eats sound, but you never know who might be listening. The enemy is everywhere and nowhere, slipping through the trees like shadows. 1 second, it feels like you're alone in the middle of nowhere. The next, a burst of gunfire snaps you back, and you realise you were being watched the whole time. That's the worst part, not knowing. The day hasn't even started, and already you're tired, already you're hungry, already you're covered in sweat. And yet, this is normal, this is routine. Waking up means pain. Waking up means work. Waking up means one more chance that today is the day you don't come back. You push yourself onto your feet, legs heavy, boots caked with mud from yesterday that never dried. They squish with each step, leather rotting in the constant wet. Your socks are worse, damp for so long they've started to eat at your skin. Trench foot, jungle rot. Names you laughed about in training but now feel chewing away at your toes. You ignore it. You have to. There's no doctor waiting to help you. Just a medic with morphine and bandages if you're lucky, and he's already overworked. The jungle stretches ahead of you. Endless green, endless noise. It doesn't look like a battlefield. No trenches, no flags, no neat lines of soldiers. Just trees, vines, streams and shadows that can hide anything. But this is the battlefield. This is where it starts. And you're already in it, whether you realise it or not. You sling your rifle tighter, swallow down the last of your iodine-flavoured water, and take your place in line. One step forward, then another, into the thick wall of green that swallows everything whole. The first thing you notice as you start moving isn't the sight of the jungle, it's the smell. You could walk blindfolded and still know where you are, because the air here carries everything. Rotting vegetation, stagnant water, smoke, sweat, cordite and fear, all mixed into something you can taste more than you can breathe. It sticks to the back of your throat, makes every inhale feel heavy, and never goes away. Even when the wind shifts, even when the canopy drips fresh rain, it's still there. The smell of war has its own personality, and it doesn't let you forget for a second where you are. The sweat on your body mixes with the stench until you're not sure where you end and the jungle begins. It's more than just humidity. It's the constant damp, the layers of mildew growing on your uniform, the sourness of boots that never dry. Your gear smells like canvas, mould and oil all baked into one, and no matter how often you clean your rifle, the metallic tang of gunpowder lingers in every crevice. You could close your eyes, put your face against it, and know instantly that it's been fired. You'll smell that same residue later when the firefight starts, only stronger, sharper, until it feels like your nostrils are coated in copper dust. The men around you smell too, though you've stopped noticing it as much. Everyone reeks of the same things: sweat, mud, damp clothes and cigarettes. There's no point judging. After weeks of marching and sleeping in the same patch of jungle, You all become part of the same odour. Sometimes you catch a whiff of soap from someone's pack, maybe a bar sent from home, but even that's tainted after a few days. Out here, clean doesn't exist. Clean is a letter from a girlfriend that still carries perfume, but even that fades quickly. Within hours it just smells like paper, sweat and jungle. Underneath the human stench, there's something else. The jungle itself has its own decay, a constant reminder that everything out here is alive, dying and rotting all at once. Wet leaves ferment on the ground, releasing a sour, almost sweet odour that clings to your skin. Mushrooms and mould bloom overnight, turning tree trunks into sponges that reek of damp earth. Dead animals hide in the brush, their bodies decomposing fast in the heat, filling the air with a sour meat smell that blends into everything else until you can't tell if it's coming from the ground or from yourself. Sometimes the smell is a warning. You can tell when you're close to a village long before you see it. Smoke from cooking fires drifts on the wind, carrying with it the scent of rice, fish, and something burning that makes your stomach growl even though you're not hungry. The first time it happens, you think maybe it's a sign of safety. Later you learn it just means trouble. Villages mean civilians, but civilians mean Viet Cong too. The smoke is never just food. It's also cover, a signal, a reminder that people are waiting for you, watching you, deciding whether you live or die before you even step into sight. And then there's the smell of explosives. It's faint in the early morning, just a ghost of cordite carried from miles away. But it's there. A sharpness that cuts through the wet air, so different from the rot and the mildew that you notice it instantly. Sometimes you smell it before you hear anything. Before the first thump of mortars, before the crack of rifles, the air shifts and your stomach drops because you know what's coming. Gunpowder doesn't wait for the sun. The worst part is how quickly you adapt. By the second week, the odour of damp uniforms and rotting vegetation stops making you gag. By the third week, the sharp sting of gunpowder barely makes you flinch. You get used to the smell of blood too. The first time you encounter it, the metallic tang overwhelms you, thick and suffocating, like a hot penny shoved into your nose. But after a while, it becomes another layer in the air. You smell it and keep moving because stopping isn't an option. The jungle doesn't pause for grief. Your stomach churns anyway, not from hunger, not from sickness, but from the constant cocktail of scents that never let up. There's no such thing as fresh air here, no breeze, no crisp mornings, no clean sheet smell. Just the heavy mix of life and death pressed against your lungs with every breath. And the closer the sun creeps to the horizon, the worse it gets. Heat bakes everything, turns damp soil into steaming mud, releases the full force of rot that was muted overnight. By mid-morning, the jungle will smell like a compost heap left in an oven, and you'll still be breathing it in because there's no escape. You wipe your nose with the back of your hand, as if that might clear it, but it doesn't. The stench lives in your clothes, in your gear, in your pores. Even if you make it home, even if you shower 100 times, it won't wash out completely. You'll carry the memory of this air with you forever, whether you want to or not. The sergeant signals for a halt, and you crouch down in the brush. The smell of damp soil rises immediately, filling your nostrils with the earthy sourness of mud that hasn't dried in months. Your knees sink into it, wet and cold, and when you shift, the odour releases stronger, like rotten plants stirred up from the bottom of a swamp. You stay quiet, rifle ready, but your senses keep cataloguing the jungle around you. The faint sweetness of cigarette smoke drifts past your face, a reminder that one of your guys is sneaking a drag, even though it could give you away. The sulphur tang from a match still lingers, mixed with the acrid burn of cheap tobacco. Normally it's familiar, almost comforting, but here it's just another signal. Another way the enemy knows where you are. You breathe it in anyway, because it's the only reminder of normal life you have left. The only thing that smells even remotely like back home. And then the wind shifts, just slightly, and a new odour creeps in. It's faint at first, but enough to make your stomach tighten. A mix of smoke and something metallic. You don't need anyone to tell you what it is. You've smelled it before. Burned powder, sweat and blood carried on the breeze from somewhere ahead. The jungle masks sound, but not scent. The enemy is close. You can smell them before you see them. You grip your rifle tighter, eyes scanning the tree line, but all you see are shadows. The air feels heavier now, thicker, as if the stench itself is pushing down on you. You know what it means. Everyone does. Sunrise hasn't even broken fully, and already the jungle reeks of war. You don't have to wait long. By the time the sun finally breaks through the canopy, your clothes are already sticking to you in ways you didn't think fabric could. The uniform you've been wearing since you got here isn't really clothing anymore. It's more like a damp rag sewn into the shape of pants and a shirt, permanently soaked, permanently stained, and permanently uncomfortable. You can't remember the last time it was dry. Maybe in training back in the States, maybe during the flight over, maybe that first day before you stepped off the transport and the heat slammed into you like a wall. Ever since then, it's been wet. The jungle doesn't allow for dry. It rains whenever it wants to, often in sudden bursts that flood the ground and soak you through in seconds. Even when it isn't raining, the air itself feels like water. Sweat pours out of you all day, and there's nowhere for it to go. The fabric of your shirt clings to your chest, your back, your arms, as if it's been glued on. The collar is stiff with salt from dried sweat, except it never really dries, so it's just crust layered over damp. Your pants sag heavy on your legs, weighed down by moisture, mud, and the occasional blood stain that you try not to think about too much. Every step you take makes your boots squish, leather groaning, socks sliding wet against your feet. You know what's happening down there, even if you try to ignore it. The skin between your toes is soft, breaking down, peeling. You've seen the others pull off their socks at night, skin white and wrinkled like something left too long in the bath. Some guys already have jungle rot, open sores that never heal, raw flesh exposed because their feet haven't been dry in weeks. You know it's only a matter of time before you join them. You change socks when you can, but the replacements are just as damp as the ones you take off, pulled from the bottom of a rucksack that smells like mildew. The shirt you wear is olive drab, or at least it used to be. Now it's a patchwork of stains. Sweat marks under the arms, darker blotches down the spine, streaks of mud splattered from crawling through the underbrush. The elbows are frayed, threads hanging loose where you've scraped against rocks and tree bark. You tried to stitch them once, with a kit your mum packed, but the needle rusted before you even finished. So now you just live with the holes. The cuffs are stiff with dirt, the buttons barely holding, and the whole thing smells like a mix of mildew and gun oil. You'd throw it away if you could, but you can't. It's the only shirt you have, and you'll wear it until it falls apart. The pants are worse. Heavy cotton soaked with rain and sweat until they feel like sandbags wrapped around your legs. The thighs chafe raw, rubbed raw by fabric that never dries and straps that dig into your hips. Every step sends a burning sting up your legs, but there's nothing you can do about it. You try adjusting, pulling them tighter, loosening them, stuffing cloth between skin and fabric, but it doesn't matter. The jungle always wins. The seams are caked with mud that never washes out, the knees torn from crawling, the pockets stiff with dirt and crumbs from rations. They hang heavy like chains, dragging you down with every movement. The helmet on your head isn't much better. It's heavy, always slipping forward with the sweat that runs down your forehead. The liner inside is supposed to cushion it, but instead it just soaks up the moisture until it reeks of mildew and scalp. You've scratched lines into it without meaning to, fingernails carving grooves as you wipe at the sweat. Sometimes you take it off just to get relief, but then you feel naked, exposed, like a target. So you put it back on and let the heat stew your head until it feels like your brain is simmering. Your web gear digs into your shoulders, straps soaked with sweat and slime from the jungle. The canvas never dries, so it sags heavy, mould creeping into the fibres. Ammunition pouches stink of gun oil, grenades clink against metal clips, and the belt around your waist rubs a red line into your skin. Every item you carry feels heavier because of the damp, like the jungle itself is pulling it all down. You think about what it would feel like to walk without the weight, without the straps, without the rifle in your hands. But that's a fantasy. You never take it off. Not here. Not even to sleep. The smell is constant. A sour, wet odour that clings to everything. Your uniform reeks of mould, sweat, and the faint metallic tang of rust from gear that's been soaked too many times. Even the rucksack smells alive, like something is growing inside it. You know it probably is. Fungus blooms in the corners, spreading white fuzz across fabric and food packets alike. You brush it off, eat anyway, because you don't have a choice. The odour fills your nostrils until you don't even notice it anymore. Not until you imagine what you used to smell like back home. Soap, laundry detergent, a clean shirt fresh out of the dryer. Those memories feel almost impossible now, like dreams from another life. Every soldier stinks the same way. You pass each other in the line, and it's not worth mentioning. No one comments. No one laughs. There's no difference between one man's uniform and another's anymore. You're all wearing the same stink, the same damp fabric plastered to your skin. The only time it changes is after a firefight. Then the smell of sweat and mould mixes with blood and burned powder, sharp and metallic, cutting through everything else. You don't talk about that either. You try to air the clothes out sometimes, hanging them on branches when the sun peeks through the canopy. It never works. The air is too wet, the shade too deep. Instead of drying, the fabric just grows a little stiffer, a little stinkier. By nightfall, it's the same as before. You put it back on, damp and heavy, because there's no other option. The idea of changing into something clean feels laughable. There is no clean. There's just slightly less filthy. And even that doesn't last long. The fabric rubs your skin raw, and the sweat never stops. Your armpits are red. Raw lines of irritation that sting every time you move your arms. The waistband digs into your hips, chafing until it feels like your skin might split. The straps across your shoulders cut into flesh, softened by weeks of dampness, leaving grooves that never heal. You scratch at your arms, your chest, your legs, but it doesn't help. The itch is constant. From fabric, from bugs, from sweat. You've given up trying to stop it. You start to realise that the uniform isn't protecting you. It's punishing you. It doesn't shield you from the rain, doesn't keep you dry, doesn't even keep the insects away. It just holds the misery against your body, trapping it there until you're too numb to care. And yet, you can't take it off. The jungle would eat you alive without it. Thorns tearing your skin, mosquitoes drinking their fill, mud caking every inch of you. The uniform is the only barrier, thin as it is, between you and everything waiting to chew you up. So you wear it, and you suffer in it, and you pretend it helps. Sometimes you wonder if the war will end before the uniform does. Will the seams give out first, or will you? The thought drifts through your mind as you adjust the straps, pull the damp fabric tighter, and take another step into the jungle. The clothes cling harder, the boots squish louder, and you keep moving anyway because there's nothing else you can do. You're hungry, but hunger out here doesn't feel the same as it does at home. Back home, hunger meant waiting for dinner, maybe sneaking a snack from the fridge, maybe complaining that you wanted something better than leftovers. Here, hunger is constant. It's there when you wake up, it's there while you march, it's there even while you chew. The gnawing in your stomach never goes away, because what you're eating isn't real food, not the way you remember it. It's fuel, and it tastes like it. The first meal of the day isn't much of a meal. It's whatever you pull from your pack. Usually a can of sea rations that's been dented, rusted at the edges, and sweating from the damp. You already know what's inside, but you look anyway, hoping maybe you've grabbed something edible this time. It's ham and lima beans again, or beef with gravy that looks like dog food, or scrambled eggs powdered and rehydrated into a rubbery mass. No one likes them. You eat them anyway. You wrestle the can open with your knife, prying at the lid until it gives with a sharp pop that echoes in the quiet. The smell hits first. A strange combination of grease, tin, and something faintly sour that's supposed to be food. It doesn't matter which ration you pulled. They all smell wrong. The eggs smell like chalk mixed with cardboard. The beef smells like rusted iron. Even the fruit cocktail, the one item guys trade cigarettes for, smells like syrup that's been sitting in the sun too long. You gag a little, but you still spoon it into your mouth, because there's no other choice. The texture is worse than the taste. The eggs are gritty, like sand was mixed in. The beans are mushy, a paste that sticks to your teeth. The meat is chewy, sinewy, breaking apart in strands that don't feel like food. Every bite reminds you this isn't cooking. It's a factory's idea of food sealed in a tin, designed to last forever, but never taste good. You chew, you swallow, and it sits heavy in your stomach like a lump of clay. If you're lucky, someone has a packet of coffee powder and a tiny heating tablet. You watch them light it carefully, crouched low so the flame doesn't give away your position. The smell of burning chemical fuel stings your nose, and the coffee itself isn't much better. A powder stirred into water until it looks brown, tastes bitter, and feels lukewarm even when it's hot. But you drink it anyway, because the caffeine might jolt you awake for another hour. If you don't have coffee, you just sip from your canteen. Iodine water tasting like chlorine mixed with pennies. Every swallow makes you grimace, but you force it down because dehydration kills faster than bullets here. Sometimes you get lucky and someone tears open a pack of crackers. They crumble in your hand, dry as chalk, bland as paper, but at least they don't taste like metal. You chew them slowly, letting them soak up the sour aftertaste of your ration. If you're really lucky, you have a can of peanut butter. Thick, oily, sticking to the roof of your mouth until you can barely breathe, but still better than the eggs. A spoonful of it feels like a gift. A reminder that food can be more than just punishment. No one eats in silence because they want to. They eat in silence because they have to. The jungle amplifies every sound you make, and the crunch of a cracker, the pop of a can, the scrape of a spoon can feel like they carry for miles. You hunch over your food, trying to be quiet, trying not to draw attention. The enemy could be anywhere. A village just ahead. A sniper in the tree line. A patrol moving silently through the brush. Breakfast is never peaceful. Breakfast is just another gamble. You look around and see the same thing on every face. No one's enjoying this. No one smiles. They chew mechanically, eyes darting to the tree line, hands never far from their rifles. Some men shovel it down fast, desperate to finish and move on. Others nibble slowly, stretching the moment out as if eating slower will somehow delay what comes after. A few don't eat at all. Their stomachs can't take it anymore, churned up from nerves or sickness. They'll just stuff the can back in their pack and keep marching on an empty belly. The fear sits heavier than the food. It's always there, but mornings make it worse. You've just woken up, you're groggy, your body is stiff, and you know the enemy loves to attack at dawn. The air feels charged, every rustle in the brush magnified by your own nerves. You spoon in another bite of powdered eggs, but it tastes like nothing because your mouth is dry with dread. Every sound makes you pause, chewing slow, listening hard. Your sergeant eats fast, not because he's hungry, but because he knows he might not get another chance. You watch him swallow without flinching at the taste, toss the empty tin aside, and light a cigarette. The sharp smell of smoke mixes with the sour food odour, drifting into the heavy morning air. You want one too, even if you don't smoke, just because it feels normal. The guys who do light up after every meal each drag a tiny ritual that says they're still alive. They cough, laugh softly, trade matches and jokes too quiet to carry. You join in when you can, but your laughter feels brittle, too thin to hold against the weight pressing down on all of you. Breakfast doesn't fill you. It never does. The rations give you calories, enough to keep your legs moving, but they don't satisfy. The hunger stays. Your stomach growls an hour later, but you push it aside because there's nothing else to eat. You start to crave things you didn't even like back home. A cheeseburger, a glass of cold milk. Even soggy cereal sounds like heaven compared to the tin of eggs you just forced down. You picture them in your mind, the way they smelled, the way they felt, and for a second you almost taste them again. Then the jungle brings you back. Sweat drips into your mouth, and all you taste is salt and metal. Sometimes someone pulls out a letter from home during breakfast. They read it while they eat, eyes scanning handwriting that smells faintly of perfume or soap. They don't share. Not really, but you catch glimpses. Words about cold winters back home, about girlfriends waiting, about dinners eaten around real tables. The letters make the rations worse, somehow. You chew your paste of eggs, while your mind drifts to kitchens, dining rooms, and families. Then you look up and see the jungle pressing in, and it feels like the world shrinks back down to tin cans and damp uniforms. You scrape the last bite out of the can, gagging a little as the greasy residue coats your tongue. You don't want it, but you can't waste it. Out here, wasting food feels like tempting fate. You swallow, wipe your mouth on your sleeve, and set the can down in the mud. The smell lingers, sour and metallic, clinging to your fingers no matter how much you wipe them on your pants. You know the odour will draw ants soon, but you don't care. You just need to keep moving. You stand, stomach heavy, throat dry, body already sticky with sweat. The fear hasn't gone anywhere. If anything, it's stronger now, sitting just under your skin, crawling up your spine. You sling your rifle back into place, adjust the straps digging into your shoulders, and glance at the men around you. They do the same. Empty tins lie scattered in the dirt, quickly buried under leaves. A few smouldering cigarette butts are crushed into the mud. Breakfast is over, not because anyone is satisfied, but because it has to be. The jungle waits. The sound of paper tearing is almost alien out here. You've gotten so used to the noises of the jungle. Mosquitoes whining in your ears, boots squelching in the mud, the occasional sharp crack of a branch snapping underfoot, that the soft rip of an envelope feels out of place. It doesn't belong in the jungle, not surrounded by mud and mildew, and men who haven't been clean in weeks. But it happens, usually in the early morning when there's a pause, or at night under the weak glow of a flashlight pressed against a poncho. Someone digs into their pack and pulls out a letter from home, creased, worn, and stained by damp fingers. Mail makes it here when it can. Helicopters drop it off when supply lines aren't blown apart, when weather allows, when someone decides it's safe enough. Sometimes it's weeks late, sometimes months. When it comes, you grab whatever envelope is meant for you like it's gold. You don't even care if it's from someone you barely know, a neighbour, a cousin, a friend of your mum who decided to write to the boys overseas. Anything is better than nothing. You slide your thumb under the flap and unfold the paper. The first thing you notice isn't the words, it's the smell. A faint trace of perfume, or laundry detergent, or just the clean dryness of a home where clothes actually go in a dryer. Out here everything smells wet and rotten, so even the ghost of a household scent feels like stepping into another world. Some guys hold the paper to their nose before they even read it, eyes closed, breathing in the memory of clean air. They look like they might cry, but most of them don't. The tears never make it out. The handwriting is shaky in the dim light, but you read it anyway. Your eyes race across the page, drinking in every word. News about the weather back home, about a football game, about a neighbour's new car. It all feels absurd compared to where you are, but you read it anyway, over and over, until the words are etched into your brain. If it's a girlfriend, the words hit harder. She says she misses you, loves you, thinks about you every day. She might spray the paper with perfume, and the faint scent lingers even after weeks of travel. You clutch it tighter than you mean to, because it feels fragile, like one more fold might make the whole thing fall apart. Sometimes the letters are short, just a few lines scrawled in a hurry. Other times they go on for pages, update about everything that seems so trivial to you now. A friend's wedding, a baby born, a new restaurant opening in town. Things that feel like they're happening on another planet. You try to picture them while you sit in the mud, boots rotting on your feet, a rifle digging into your lap. You can't. It feels too far away. When you're finished, you fold the letter back up, smoother than you unfolded it, careful not to tear it. You slide it into your pocket, close to your chest, as if carrying the words near your heart might keep you alive another day. Some men keep their letters wrapped in plastic bags, safe from the damp. Others pin them inside their helmets, tucked under the liner so the words rest against their scalp. Everyone has their own ritual. Everyone treats the paper like it's worth more than any bullet or ration. But the strange thing is, no one writes back. Not really. You tell yourself you will. You think about it. Imagine what you'd say, how you'd answer each line. But when the time comes, when the paper and pencil are in your hand, the words don't come. You stare at the page, the jungle pressing in around you, and everything feels too heavy. What do you write? I'm alive today, but maybe not tomorrow. I spend every night sweating in fear, waiting for an ambush. You don't write that. You can't. So you jot down a few vague lines. I'm fine. Things are okay. I miss you. Then you fold it up and toss it aside, or shove it in your pack until the paper dissolves in the damp. Even when you do manage to send something, it never feels right. The words feel hollow, stripped of the reality you live in. You don't write about the smell of blood, the weight of carrying a friend's body, the way the mosquitoes never stop biting. You don't write about how every time you hear a twig snap, your heart slams so hard against your ribs you think it might burst. You just say you're fine. You lie because telling the truth would be cruel, and because no one back home would understand anyway. The letters pile up. Some guys carry dozens, folded so many times the creases have become cracks, and they read them again and again, even when they've memorized every word. Others can't. They tuck the paper away and never look at it, because it hurts too much. You see one guy rip his up once, tearing it into tiny pieces and scattering them in the mud. He doesn't explain why, and no one asks. You just watch the little white fragments melt into the damp ground and pretend you don't notice. What makes it worse is when letters don't come. You see it in their faces. The mail drop arrives and their name isn't called. Everyone else clutches envelopes, smiling faintly or trying not to, and they sit empty-handed. They shrug, say it doesn't matter, but you can see it does. Some of them stop expecting mail altogether, like admitting the connection to home has already snapped. The worst letters are the ones that end things. A girlfriend writing to say she's found someone else. A wife saying she can't wait anymore. The words are written carefully, but they land like grenades. The man reads it, folds it up slowly, and stares into the distance for hours. You know what he's thinking. Not about her, not really, but about the hole left behind. About how the one thing pulling him through just vanished in a few lines of ink. Sometimes the letters aren't even from loved ones. They're from strangers, volunteers, school kids writing thank you notes to soldiers overseas. They draw pictures of flags and eagles, write clumsy sentences about freedom and bravery. You read them anyway, because even a stranger's words are better than silence. You smile a little at the crooked handwriting, the misspelled words, and then you fold it carefully like it matters. Out here, it does. Night makes the letters worse. In the dark, when you're lying in the mud listening to the jungle breathe, the words echo louder. You hear them in your head, see the handwriting when you close your eyes. Sometimes it helps. Sometimes it doesn't. You know you'll never write back the way you should. You know you'll never explain what it really feels like to be here. The paper carries messages one way only, from home to the jungle, not the other way around. You fold the letter one last time, tuck it back into your pocket, and grip your rifle. The paper is thin, fragile, already softening from sweat and rain. You wonder if it'll survive the week. You wonder if you will. The jungle doesn't wait for an answer. The jungle doesn't care that you're a soldier. It doesn't care that you're carrying an M16, or that you've been trained, or that you've survived firefights. Out here, the enemy isn't always the man with a rifle hidden in the tree line. Sometimes it's the trees, the insects, the mud, the air itself. The jungle is the one enemy that never lets up, never sleeps, never pulls back, and it always wins in the end. The ground beneath your feet isn't really ground. It's mud, thick and sucking, swallowing your boots with every step. You pull one foot up, and the other sinks deeper, the sound of suction loud enough to make you flinch. Sometimes you slip, landing hard, your hands plunging into muck that smells like rot. The mud seeps into your sleeves, into your socks, into the seams of your gear. It dries in patches, stiff and heavy, until the next rain turns it back into sludge. You never escape it. At night you dream of dry dirt, of sidewalks, of anything solid. Then you wake up with your boots still half buried, the mud still tugging at your legs. The insects never stop. Mosquitoes hum so loudly around your ears you think you'll go mad. They bite through fabric, through socks, through the thin layer of repellent you smeared on hours ago that already washed away in your sweat. Every exposed inch of skin is covered in welts, swollen and hot, itching until you bleed. You slap at your arms, your neck, your legs, but it doesn't matter. For everyone you kill, 10 more take its place. At night, they swarm so thick you hear them like static. Some guys sleep with their heads under their ponchos, sweating and suffocating, just to get a moment's relief. But the mosquitoes always find a way in. And then there are the leeches. You don't even feel them at first. You cross a stream, the water cool around your legs, and when you climb out, they're already clinging. Tiny black worms attached to your skin, swelling as they feed on your blood. You look down and see them wriggling, fat and shiny, and your stomach lurches. You try to pull them off, but they hold fast, jaws locked tight. The trick is to burn them with a cigarette or rip them away with a knife. Either way, they leave trails of blood that don't stop for minutes, sometimes hours. Your socks soak through with red, and you keep marching because you have no choice. By the 10th time it happens, you stop reacting. You just rip them off, flick them into the brush, and keep going, legs streaked with blood and mud. Your skin starts to break down after days in the damp. The constant wetness softens it until it splits, cracks and peels. Between your toes, the flesh goes white and slimy, tender to the touch. That's jungle rot, and once it starts, it spreads fast. Some men lose whole chunks of skin, raw flesh exposed, too painful to walk on. The medics do what they can, bandaging sores, sprinkling powder, but it doesn't last. By the next march, the wounds are open again, flies buzzing around your boots, maggots wriggling in the sores if you're unlucky. You stop thinking of your body as your own. It belongs to the jungle now, and it's breaking apart piece by piece. The heat is constant. It presses down on you like a hand, heavy and wet. Your shirt sticks to your back, your chest, your arms. You feel like you're drowning in air that's too thick to breathe. Sweat pours from you until your body feels hollow, but the thirst never goes away. You drink from your canteen, iodine water sour and metallic, and still your lips crack. Your tongue sticks to the roof of your mouth. Dehydration sneaks up fast. You see men faint mid-march, collapsing into the mud, their eyes rolling back. They're dragged to the side, poured full of water. But sometimes it's too late. The jungle doesn't forgive mistakes. The plants cut you too. Vines with thorns snag your arms, tearing open skin. Bamboo splinters into your palms when you grab it for balance. Sharp grass slices your fingers as if it were steel. You stop noticing the little cuts, the tiny lines of blood running down your arms, because there are too many. You only notice when one festers, swelling hot and red, oozing pus that smells like rot. Infection is the jungle's favourite weapon. A scratch today becomes a fever tomorrow. A blister becomes an abscess. Without antibiotics, without a hospital, a paper cut can be a death sentence. The jungle suffocates you. The canopy is so thick that sunlight barely filters through. What does come down is green, a dim glow that makes the world look underwater. The air doesn't move. No breeze, no wind, just a wall of humidity that traps every smell, every sound. You breathe in dampness, and it settles in your lungs until coughing feels inevitable. Some men never stop coughing, hacking up phlegm night after night until their ribs ache. The medics call it jungle lung, just another name for another way the place eats at you. Even sleep isn't safe. You lie on the ground, poncho stretched above you if you're lucky, and feel the damp rise through the soil into your bones. Ants crawl across your skin, biting at your eyelids, your lips. Centipedes slither into your boots. Rats scurry over your chest in the dark, searching for crumbs. You swat, you kick, you curse, but the jungle doesn't care. You wake up itching, bleeding, exhausted. Your body feels like it's falling apart, and the day hasn't even begun. The noise is constant too. Insects screech, monkeys scream, frogs croak so loud you think they're mocking you. At first it sounds random, then you realise it isn't. The jungle has rhythms, patterns, a pulse you start to recognise. You learn to listen for the silences, because that's when it's worst. When the animals go quiet, when the buzzing stops, it means something else is moving. Something bigger. Sometimes it's just a predator. Sometimes it's the enemy. Either way, the silence makes your stomach knot. The jungle doesn't just eat your body, it eats your mind. The constant damp, the unending noise, the itch, the rot, the smell, it grinds you down until you're raw. You stop thinking about home, about the future. You only think about your next step, your next drink of water, your next chance to scrape a leech off your leg. The jungle doesn't kill you all at once. It kills you slowly, in pieces, until you barely recognise yourself, and all the while the war waits. War. The rifle never leaves your hands. You sleep with it, eat with it, walk with it, piss with it. It's not a weapon anymore, not really. It's an extension of your body, strapped to you so tightly that sometimes you forget what it feels like to be without it. The M16 is supposed to be light. That's what the training instructors back home said. 5.5 pounds unloaded, easy to carry, easier to shoot. But that's just the number on paper. Out here, under the weight of everything else you carry, 5 pounds feels like 50. You grip it constantly, palms slick with sweat that soaks into the plastic handguard. The barrel is always warm, even if you haven't fired it, because the sun bakes everything metal until it feels like it's burning your skin. You sling it across your shoulder and it digs into the bone, leaving a deep groove that aches every time you shift. When you crouch, it bangs into your knees. When you crawl, it catches on vines. You curse it under your breath, but you never let go. Dropping it is unthinkable. The rifle is the only thing standing between you and the sudden end that waits behind every tree. And that's just the rifle. On top of it, there's everything else. The rucksack strapped to your back, canvas and steel weighing 80 pounds if it weighs an ounce. Ammunition alone feels like carrying a pile of bricks. 20-round magazines stuffed into pouches, grenades clipped to your harness, bandoliers slung across your chest till you jingle like a walking arsenal. Each step grinds the weight deeper into your shoulders, the straps cutting into your collarbones, leaving raw grooves that never heal. Inside the pack, there's more. Spare socks, each pair soaked through already, a poncho that smells of mildew, sea rations rattling in dented cans, a first aid packet you pray you'll never need, a steel helmet liner that adds just enough weight to make your neck throb. The entrenching tool, a little folding shovel, digs into your back through the canvas, a constant reminder that even the ground isn't yours until you carve it out. Water is the heaviest burden of all. The canteens slap against your hips as you walk, each one heavy with iodine-tainted water. You drink from them constantly, but they're never enough. Some men carry extra, strapping canteens across their chests, until they feel like they're drowning under the sloshing load. But you need them, because the jungle takes your sweat as fast as you can replace it. The more you carry, the slower you move. The less you carry, the faster you collapse. It's a trap with no way out. Every step is a negotiation with the weight. You lean forward, shoulders hunched, knees bent, trying to balance it so it doesn't topple you. The straps rub your skin raw until blisters form under your arms. You shift them, adjust them, but there's no relief. The load presses down like it's trying to grind you into the mud. You imagine what it would feel like to drop it all, to shrug it off, and stand up straight, light and free. The thought barely lasts. You can't. You need every ounce of what you carry. Not because you want to, but because survival demands it. The rifle jams sometimes. Everyone knows it. The M16 was supposed to be modern, sleek, the pride of American engineering. Out here it's temperamental, finicky, choking on the mud and grit that seep into every crevice. You clean it constantly, stripping it down whenever there's a pause, wiping every piece with an oily rag that smells sharp and chemical. You reassemble it with hands that shake from exhaustion. Pray it doesn't misfire when you need it most, and sling it back across your chest. It's both lifeline and liability. You hate it, and you cling to it anyway. The grenades weigh heavy too. Little metal pineapples that bump against your sides as you walk. Their weight a constant reminder of what they're meant for. You can feel their coldness even through the fabric, and sometimes you swear you hear them ticking, even though you know they're silent. You touch them without meaning to, fingers brushing the metal, checking that the pins are still there. You think about how easy it would be to pull one, how final it would be, and you force the thought away before it roots too deep. The mortar rounds are worse. If you're unlucky enough to be assigned to carry them, the extra weight turns every step into torture. They're heavy, awkward, clinking in their tubes, bruising your back as they shift. The men assigned to the machine guns suffer too, lugging belts of ammunition that drag them down until their legs tremble. Everyone carries more than they should. Everyone walks hunched, bent under loads designed to break them. Your boots, already ruined by mud and rot, add their own weight. The leather is stiff, waterlogged, caked with grime until each one feels like a lead block tied to your foot. You lift them anyway, step after step, the weight dragging at your calves. The socks inside are no better, heavy with sweat, rubbing your skin raw until blisters pop and bleed. The medics tape them when they can, but the tape doesn't last. Nothing lasts here. The sun rises higher and the weight gets worse. Heat presses down, combining with the load until it feels like you're carrying the jungle itself. Your spine aches, your knees burn, your shoulders throb with every jolt. You shift the rifle from one hand to the other, but both feel numb after hours of clutching it. Your fingers cramp around the grip until you wonder if you'll ever be able to let go. You flex them when you can, but the relief is brief. Some men collapse under the weight. You've seen it. They stumble, knees buckling, bodies falling into the mud with their gear pinning them down. Others help them up, hauling them back onto their feet, but sometimes they can't. Sometimes the weight is too much, and the man just lies there, gasping, eyes wide with panic, as if the jungle itself has decided he won't get up again. The pack gets stripped from his back, redistributed among the rest of you, and you keep moving. No one says a word. The weight is already crushing you. Adding more doesn't change that. At night, you set the load down, but you don't feel lighter. Your shoulders still ache. Your spine still curves forward. Your legs still tremble. The straps have left bruises that run purple down your chest, the grooves so deep they feel permanent. Even lying down, you feel the phantom weight pressing into you, as if the rucksack never came off. You try to stretch, but your body won't straighten. The weight has bent you, reshaped you, until you walk like an old man long before your time. The M16 lies across your chest as you try to sleep. Its barrel cold now, but still heavy. You don't push it aside. You hold it, fingers wrapped around the grip, cheek pressed against the stock, as if letting go would mean you're already dead. The weight doesn't leave you. It never does. You close your eyes, and all you feel is the load pressing down. The war hasn't even begun for the day. The jungle always feels like it's watching you. Every leaf, every shadow, every rustle in the undergrowth seems alive, not just with animals, but with eyes. You keep your rifle raised, scanning the trees, trying to pierce the green wall ahead. Nothing moves, nothing visible anyway. That's worse, because here, silence doesn't mean safety. Silence means you're already in it. You just don't know where the first shot is coming from. You march in single file, boots sucking at the mud, packs creaking, the occasional click of a canteen bumping against metal. Every sound feels too loud. You try to step carefully, but the jungle doesn't allow it. Branches snap, vines tear, leaves crunch underfoot. Each noise echoes in your skull, and you picture it carrying for miles, announcing your position to people you'll never see. Your jaw tightens, your teeth grind, and still you keep moving because stopping isn't an option. Your eyes ache from straining at the tree line. The enemy never looks like the movies. They don't pop out of the brush in neat uniforms, charging in lines. They blend, they crouch, they hide in tunnels behind tree lines, in huts that look abandoned but aren't. By the time you see them, it's too late. So you keep looking, Keep searching for shapes that don't belong. A patch of dirt too smooth. A tree line too quiet. A glint of sunlight of something that shouldn't shine. Each flicker jolts your heart, but each time it's nothing, until the one time it isn't. You feel it in your stomach before it happens. A knot twisting, tightening, telling you that something is wrong. The birds go quiet, the insects fade, and the air feels heavier, thicker. You grip your rifle tighter, knuckles white, and glance at the men around you. They feel it too. Shoulders tense, heads darting left and right, eyes wide. No one says anything. They don't need to. Everyone knows. The sergeant raises a hand, and the line freezes. You crouch low, knees sinking into mud, rifle raised, ears straining. The jungle hums, but the sound is wrong, like static just before radio cuts out. Sweat runs into your eyes, stinging, but you don't dare wipe it. You wait. And waiting is the worst part. Minutes stretch into hours, even when only seconds have passed. Your muscles burn from crouching. Your breath comes shallow. Your heart thuds so loud you're sure it can be heard. You scan every shadow, every movement of leaves, waiting for the muzzle flash, the crack of a rifle, the scream of mortars. Nothing comes. The silence stretches, presses, suffocates. You start to wonder if you imagined it, if the knot in your stomach is just hunger or nerves. Then the first shot snaps through the air. It comes from nowhere, sharp and fast, and one of the men in front of you jerks backward, body slamming into the mud. Your ears ring before your brain even catches up. Then the jungle explodes. Gunfire erupts from the tree line, muzzle flashes blinking like fireflies in the shadows. The air fills with the whip crack of AK-47S, the buzz of rounds slicing past your ears, the dull thump of grenades bursting in the distance. You drop flat, face pressed into the mud, rifle clutched so tight your hands shake. The ambush isn't beginning now. It began hours ago, maybe days. The enemy has been here the whole time, waiting, watching, planning. You just walked into it. You fire blindly into the trees, muzzle flashing, the recoil rattling your bones. You don't see targets, just shapes, shadows, movement that might not even be there. The smell of cordite fills your nose, sharp and bitter, mixing with the stench of sweat and rot. Dirt sprays into your face as rounds slam into the ground around you. Leaves explode overhead, branches snap. The noise is deafening. Men shouting orders you can't hear, screams cutting through the chaos, rifles hammering in bursts. You can't tell where it's coming from, who's firing, who's hit. You crawl forward, dragging your pack through the mud, chest heaving, ears ringing. Your helmet slips forward, sweat pouring into your eyes, but you keep moving. The waiting doesn't end when the shooting starts. That's the trick of it. Even in the middle of the ambush, you're still waiting. Waiting to see where the next shot will come from. Waiting to see who falls next. Waiting for the mortar, the grenade, the machine gun burst that rips the air apart. Every second stretches. Every heartbeat feels like it could be the last. You glance to your left and see a friend firing into the tree line, face twisted, mouth open in a scream you can't hear. A moment later, he's gone, body thrown back by a blast you didn't see coming. You don't stop to check him. You can't. The line keeps moving, keeps pushing, keeps firing. You're dragged along with it, crawling, running, stumbling, always waiting for the impact that might already have your name on it. The enemy doesn't stay still. They fire, they move, they vanish. You fire back, but you're shooting at ghosts. The jungle swallows them whole, leaves closing around them like nothing happened. You wonder if you even hit anyone, if your rounds are just disappearing into the green. You keep pulling the trigger anyway, because the alternative is to stop. And stopping isn't an option. The worst part isn't the noise. It's the seconds between. The pauses when the firing slows, when the jungle goes quiet again. You lie there, chest heaving, ears ringing, waiting for the next wave. Every rustle, every breath of wind feels like a hand on your shoulder. You know they're still out there. You know they're watching. You wait for the next shot, the next scream, the next burst of fire. It doesn't come right away, and that makes it worse. Time loses meaning. The ambush feels like it lasts forever, even if it's only minutes. You fire, you crawl, you wait, you fire again. Your body aches, your hands shake, your rifle grows hot in your grip, sweat blinds you, mud cakes your face, your stomach churns. You don't think about home, about food, about tomorrow. You only think about the waiting, about whether this second is the one that ends it. And when the firing finally fades, when the jungle goes still again, the waiting doesn't end. You know it's not over. It's never over. The enemy doesn't vanish. They just move. You pick yourself up, mud dripping from your helmet, rifle still clutched tight, and your body trembles with exhaustion. You wait for another shot, another explosion, another scream. You keep waiting, because that's all there is. The ambush has already started. It never really stops. The jungle has its own language, but the war overlays a different one, a brutal vocabulary made of sound. The first notes are low and distant, like someone pounding a drum you can't see. At first, you think it's thunder. Then the thumps come faster, harder, closer. Mortars. You know the rhythm now. A muffled pop as they launch, a pause while they arc overhead, and then the earth-splitting crack when they land. Each one shakes your ribs, rattles your teeth, sends a shockwave through your chest that leaves your stomach rolling. You hear the launch before the impact, and that's the worst part. You get a second to imagine where it's going to hit, a second to wonder if it has your name on it. You press into the mud, arms over your head, body curled as small as it can go, and you wait. The pause stretches until your whole body tenses, every muscle locked. Then the blast comes, the ground lurching under you, dirt raining down, branches crashing from above. Your ears ring so hard it feels like the sound has replaced everything else in the world. One mortar is bad. Dozens are unbearable. They come in waves, relentless, each one overlapping the last until you can't tell where one ends and another begins. The air itself feels like it's being ripped apart, pressure waves punching your lungs, leaving you gasping even when you're not hit. You smell it too. The acrid bite of explosives, thick and sharp, burning your nostrils until your eyes water. The odour clings to your clothes, your skin, mixing with the sweat and mud until you reek of gunpowder. Men shout orders, but you can't hear them. Your ears are filled with the roar, the ringing, the endless concussions. Mouths move, hands wave, but the blasts swallow their voices. You follow gestures, half-understood signals, crawling when they crawl, freezing when they freeze. Your world shrinks to flashes and thumps, fire and mud. When the mortars pause, the silence is worse. You lie there, body trembling, ears buzzing, waiting for the next round. You never know if it's over or just a lull. You try to breathe, but each inhale feels shallow, tight, like the air itself doesn't want to enter your lungs anymore. Your heart slams in your chest, louder than the blasts, and you can't tell if you're alive because you survived the last one or just waiting for the next. And then comes the sound that every soldier learns to love and dread at the same time. Helicopters. You hear them before you see them, a low, chopping hum that builds into a thunder, blades beating the air with a rhythm that feels mechanical and alive at once. It rolls over the jungle, bouncing between trees, echoing off the hills. You look up, straining to see past the canopy, but the leaves block the sky. You don't need to see them. You know the sound. Hueys. The choppers mean hope sometimes. Supplies. Reinforcements. A way out if you're lucky, but they also mean noise. So much noise. The thumping blades drown out everything else, shaking the ground, vibrating in your chest. When they hover low, the air churns, blasting dirt, leaves and debris into a storm that blinds you. You squint, eyes filled with grit, helmet rattling against your heads, and you cling to your rifle as the rotor wash slams into you. The smell changes with the choppers too. Fuel fumes roll down with the downdraft, sharp and chemical, coating your tongue until it tastes like metal and oil. Mixed with the smell of cordite from the mortars, it's overwhelming. A cocktail of war that makes you gag but never fades. You breathe it in because you can't stop it. Sometimes the choppers drop men, boots hitting the ground, rifles raised, faces tight. They shout, but you barely hear them over the roar. Sometimes they take men out, lifting wounded bodies wrapped in bandages, strapped to stretchers. You watch them rise into the sky, spinning away into the noise, and for a moment you wonder if you'll ever ride one out alive. And sometimes the helicopters bring fire. Door gunners leaning out, M60s rattling, brass casings raining down as they strafe the tree line. The sound of their guns is different, heavier, more sustained. A brutal hammering that chews through leaves and branches. You cheer inside, even as the noise makes your head throb, because at least it's your side making the noise this time. But helicopters are targets too. You watch tracer rounds streak up through the canopy, red lines cutting the sky. Sometimes they miss. Sometimes they don't. You hear it when they hit. The shudder of the blades, the cough of the engine, the sudden pitch change as the bird lurches. The crash is deafening, metal tearing, flames roaring, screams mixing with the thunder of rotors spinning out of control. The jungle swallows the wreckage fast, trees closing around it like it was never there. The combination of mortars and helicopters defines your days. The distant thump, the overhead chop, the endless cycle of waiting and reacting. Your ears never adjust. The ringing stays, a high-pitched whine that follows you even in silence. You lie awake at night, hearing phantom blades, phantom blasts, replaying each sound until you can't tell what's real anymore. You stop flinching eventually. The first few times you hit the dirt, body pressed flat, heart hammering. After weeks, you just crouch lower, rifle ready, ears buzzing. The body learns, even if the mind doesn't. You tell yourself you're used to it, but you're not. Every sound still rattles you. Every pause still fills you with dread. The jungle never goes quiet again. Not really. Even in the rare moments when the mortars aren't firing and the helicopters aren't thundering, the echoes stay. You hear them in the trees, in the wind, in your own heartbeat. The war lives in your ears, and there's no way to shut it out. The noise becomes part of you. The thump of mortars, the chop of helicopters, the endless, inescapable soundtrack of a war that never lets you rest. And it's still only morning. You thought the jungle was bad. You thought the mud, the leeches, the mosquitoes and the mortars were more than anyone could endure. Then you march into Hugh and you realise the war has other shapes. The jungle eats at you slowly, but the city tears you apart instantly, one corner at a time. Hugh doesn't look like a battlefield at first glance. From a distance, it looks like a city from another world, with ancient walls, temples, and streets lined with houses. But once you're inside, it feels like you've stepped into a trap built specifically to swallow soldiers whole. The streets are narrow, the buildings tall and close, every doorway a potential hiding spot, every window a firing port. The enemy is everywhere and nowhere, and for the first time you feel like the jungle almost made sense compared to this. The first shot doesn't come from ahead, it comes from above. A rifle crack echoing off stone walls, bouncing so many times you can't even tell which direction it came from. The man in front of you drops, hit in the chest, blood blooming across his uniform before he even hits the ground. You dive to the side, pressing against a wall, your rifle raised but pointed at nothing. The street is empty, still, silent except for the ringing in your ears. Then another shot. Another man falls. This isn't the jungle, where at least you could guess where the fire was coming from. Here, every window is a rifle barrel, every rooftop a nest. You can't see them, but they see you. You're exposed, caught between walls that channel you like cattle. Every movement predicted, every step a gamble. And the air smells different too. Not the rot of leaves and mud, but dust, brick and smoke. Explosions turn houses into rubble, and the fine powder of shattered walls coats your tongue until it tastes like chalk and blood. You advance slowly, inch by inch, rifle raised, finger tight on the trigger. Each doorway has to be cleared, each alley checked, each pile of rubble hiding the possibility of an ambush. You step through a door, and your stomach knots. The inside of the house is dark, shadows pooling in corners, the air heavy with smoke and the metallic tang of blood. You hear footsteps above, quick, deliberate. You throw a grenade, the blast tearing through walls, ears ringing as screams mix with dust and debris raining from the ceiling. You step forward anyway, because there's no stopping. The house isn't a house anymore, it's a trap, and you're just moving through it one heartbeat at a time. The city itself feels alive, groaning with explosions, shrieking with gunfire. Tanks rumble down narrow streets, their tracks crushing the pavement, their cannons blowing holes in walls that shower the road with stone and wood. The sound reverberates so hard it shakes your chest. You follow in their wake, pressed against their sides for cover, ears pounding from each blast. The enemy doesn't run from the tanks. They vanish into alleys, pop up behind you, fire from rooftops. You fire back, and the city fills with echoes. It feels like fighting in a tunnel, sound bouncing until you can't tell your shots from theirs. The worst part is the civilians. The city was full of people before this. Families who lived in those houses, who prayed in those temples, who walked those streets. Now they're trapped in the middle. You see them darting across alleys, clutching children, eyes wide with terror. You can't tell if they're running from the enemy or toward them. You can't tell if they're innocent or carrying messages. Every face blurs into the chaos, and you learn not to look too long. If you start to think about them, you'll freeze. Freezing here gets you killed. You hear the clatter of AK fire around the corner and dive into the dirt. Bullets spark against the wall inches from your head, stone chips stinging your face. You roll, fire blind into the alley, the recoil slamming into your shoulder, the muzzle flash lighting up the darkness for half a second. You don't know if you hit anything. You don't stop to check. Someone else throws a smoke grenade, and the street fills with thick, choking fog. You crawl forward, eyes stinging, throat burning, ears straining for movement you can't see. The fight doesn't move fast. It crawls inch by inch, house by house. You fight all morning, all afternoon, all night. You think you've cleared a block, only to find the enemy back in it hours later, slipping through alleys, hiding in sewers, vanishing into the maze of the city. You start to realise this isn't a battle you can win. It's a grind, a slow-motion meat grinder that chews through men and bricks until nothing is left but rubble. The smell is unbearable. Gunpowder hangs thick in the air, acrid and sharp, coating your nostrils until everything tastes like metal. Smoke rises from burning houses, the sweet stench of wood mixing with the sour odour of flesh. You pass bodies in the street, some enemy, some friendly, some civilian. You can't stop to move them. You step over them, eyes fixed forward, rifle raised, trying not to breathe too deeply. The flies don't care. They swarm, buzzing so loud it feels like another layer of gunfire. The fear never leaves. In the jungle, at least you had space, even if it was hostile. Here, the walls press in. The alleys choke you. The rooftops loom. You never know where the next shot will come from. A window? A pile of rubble? A sewer grate under your feet? You spin constantly, rifle jerking from shadow to shadow, nerves stretched so tight you think they'll snap. You sleep in corners when you can, head against a wall, rifle across your lap, jerking awake at every sound. The city doesn't let you rest. The days blur together. Morning, afternoon, night. It doesn't matter. The fight never stops. You lose track of time, of how many houses you've cleared, how many alleys you've crossed. You just keep moving, because stopping means dying. The city doesn't let you breathe. It doesn't let you think. It just swallows you, one block at a time, and spits you out covered in dust, blood, and smoke. You realise something after a while. This isn't a street fight. It isn't a battle. It's a siege, not just of a city, but of yourself. The walls are closing in, the air is choking you, the noise is deafening, and the fight doesn't end. You don't win here, you just endure. And Hugh doesn't let you go. You never really see them. That's the part that gnaws at you more than the bullets or the mortars. The men you fight aren't standing in the open. They aren't waiting in neat formations. They're shadows, whispers, and sometimes they aren't there at all. You hear them, you feel them, but your eyes never catch them long enough to be sure. You call them ghosts because that's what they are. Men who appear, strike, and vanish into the ground itself. The first time you hear about the tunnels, you don't believe it. The idea that an army could live under your feet, unseen, sounds like a rumour. Then one day you're crouched in a burned-out village, and the ground beneath you shifts. A trapdoor opens in the dirt. A figure rises, fires, and disappears before you can even squeeze your trigger. Your heart slams into your ribs as you realise it's true. They're everywhere, under you, around you, beneath every patch of earth you thought was safe. The ground itself is enemy territory. The tunnels aren't just holes in the dirt. They're whole worlds, carved by hand, stretching for miles. Underground rooms with kitchens, storage, hospitals. Passages so narrow you have to crawl on your belly, your rifle dragging in the mud behind you. The entrances are invisible until it's too late. A patch of leaves hides the hatch. A termite mound disguises a vent. A well in a village drops not into water, but into a tunnel where rifles are waiting. When the sergeant orders you to check one, your stomach turns. They call it being a tunnel rat, and it's the job everyone dreads. You strip down, shed your pack, grab a flashlight and a pistol, and slide into a hole barely wide enough for your shoulders. The air is thick, damp, choking. It smells of earth, sweat, smoke, and something else you can't name. Something rotten. You crawl forward on your stomach, elbows and knees scraping dirt. Your light cutting only a few feet ahead. The tunnel seems to breathe with you. The walls pressing close, the ceiling so low you can't lift your head. Every sound echoes. Your breath comes loud, rasping, bouncing back until you feel like you're suffocating on your own lungs. Rats scurry ahead, their squeaks piercing the dark. Sometimes you hear movement that isn't rats. Footsteps, a cough, the click of metal. Your hand tightens on the pistol, finger hovering, eyes straining at the shadows just ahead. You imagine faces in the dark, rifles pointed back at you. Sometimes it's real. Sometimes it's just your fear. The traps are real though. Punji stakes, sharpened bamboo dipped in filth to rot your flesh. Tripwires connected to grenades, ready to turn the earth into a tomb. Hidden pits, collapses, tunnels flooded on purpose to drown whoever crawls in. You inch forward anyway, because turning back feels worse. The fear behind you, the judgment of the men waiting above, pushes you on. You tell yourself you'll see daylight again. You don't always believe it. When you do meet someone down there, it's fast and brutal. A flash of movement in the beam of your flashlight, a muzzle flare, a scream in the dark. You fire, the blast deafening in the tight space, dirt raining down as the walls shake. Then silence again, your ears ringing, your stomach lurching. You crawl forward, past the body, past the stench, deeper into the dark. You tell yourself you're still alive. For now. Above ground, it isn't much better. The enemy vanishes into the tunnels whenever you push forward. You clear a village, sweep through houses, check every room, and when you think it's safe, they're back. They crawl out of holes behind you, fire into your flank, disappear again. It feels like fighting smoke. You grab at it, and your hands close on nothing. You fire into the trees, the houses, the ground itself, but they're already gone. The ghosts don't just hide in tunnels. They melt into the jungle, into the villages, into the very people you pass. A farmer in black pyjamas pushing a cart could be carrying rice, or he could be carrying ammunition. A woman in a conical hat could be a mother, or she could be pointing you out to the men watching from the tree line. You never know. You never trust. You learn to see everyone as a threat, every face as a mask hiding a rifle. It eats at you, but it keeps you alive. At night, it's worse. You set up camp, post guards, settle into the mud, and you hear them. Footsteps in the dark, whispers in a language you don't understand. The click of metal. You raise your rifle, finger tight, eyes wide, and see nothing. The jungle sways in the breeze. Shadows flicker, and you're sure they're there. Sometimes they are. Sometimes it's just the wind. You never know until the shots come. The ghosts don't need to fight you head on. They harass, they sting, they remind you that the ground you walk on isn't yours. A sniper's crack in the distance. A mine buried in the road. A tripwire across a path. The jungle and the city both become haunted, and you're the one being hunted. You never feel safe, not even for a second. The tunnels make it worse because they prove something you don't want to admit. This isn't your territory. It never was. You're marching on land that belongs to someone else, and they know it better than you ever will. They've lived in those tunnels for years, raised families in them, healed wounds, planned attacks. You're just a visitor, and the ground itself reminds you of that every time it opens up and swallows a man whole. You crawl out of a tunnel once, covered in dirt, sweat pouring down your face, your hands shaking so hard you can barely hold your pistol. The sunlight blinds you. The air feels hot and wet, but cleaner than what you just breathed. You suck it in like it's the first breath you've taken in days. The men waiting above pat your back, but you see the look in their eyes. Relief that it wasn't them. Relief that someone else went down it instead. You can't even blame them. You'd do the same. But you don't feel relief. You feel haunted. Because now you know the ground isn't solid. Now you know the ghosts are always there, beneath you, waiting. You walk on earth that feels hollow. Every step a reminder that someone might be listening from below. You can't forget it. You can't unlearn it. The tunnels stay with you, even when you're nowhere near one. The jungle, the city, the villages, they all belong to the ghosts. You just pass through, rifle tight in your hands, nerves stretched until they snap, waiting for shadows that may or may not be real. And you start to wonder if maybe you're the ghost instead. You march into a village and it doesn't look like a battlefield. It looks like life. Low houses with tin roofs, children barefoot in the dirt, women stirring pots over fires, old men crouched in the shades smoking hand-rolled cigarettes. Chickens scatter as you walk past, dogs bark. The smell of rice cooking mixes with smoke and dust. For a second, you almost feel like you've stepped out of the war and into something normal. Then the knot in your stomach reminds you, normal doesn't exist here. Every face you see could belong to someone who wants you dead. That's the thought drilled into you, and you can't shake it. The man repairing his roof could be harmless, or he could be the same man who planted a mine on the road last night. The woman carrying a basket of vegetables could be feeding her children, or she could be carrying grenades under the pile of food. Even the children. You don't want to think it, but you have seen it. A boy running with a satchel that isn't full of books but explosives. Out here there's no clear line. You can't tell who's who until it's too late. So you walk stiff, rifle raised, eyes darting to every corner, every window, every alley. Your finger hovers over the trigger, and you hate yourself for it. You don't want to aim at these people, not really. But you've seen what happened when you hesitate. You've seen friends torn apart because they trusted the wrong face. The memory makes your hand shake, but not from guilt, from fear. The villagers don't look at you the way people back home would. There's no gratitude, no relief, just flat stares, unreadable expressions. Silence heavier than any ambush. Some glare openly, eyes full of hate. Others look down, refusing to meet your gaze. The children don't run up to you, don't laugh, don't play. They watch from behind their mothers, wide-eyed, lips pressed shut. You feel like an intruder, a shadow walking through lives that don't want you there. You can't shake the thought that someone here is signalling. A cough too loud, a glance too long, a sudden movement into a doorway. You remember what the sergeant told you. They don't need radios. They don't need wires. They just need eyes. Someone in this crowd is already telling the enemy you're here, how many of you there are, what weapons you carry. You keep walking anyway, because there's no other choice. The village sits on the road you need, and detouring into the jungle isn't safer. It's just a different kind of trap. Your boots kick up dust, and the smell of cooking turns sour in your nose. You want to believe the food is just food, that the smoke rising from pots is harmless, but your mind twists it. You picture it as a signal, drifting into the air, carrying word that the Americans are here. You glance at the rooftops, expecting rifle barrels, and every window feels like an eye. Sometimes the villagers approach, an old man with hands calloused from farming, a young woman carrying a jug of water, a child tugging at your sleeve. They smile faintly, offer rice, speak words you don't understand. You don't know if it's kindness, or if they're distracting you while someone else circles behind. You don't know if the food is safe to eat, or laced with something meant to sicken you. You don't know anything, so you shake your head, wave them back, and feel the shame crawl up your spine. You want to trust. You can't. The worst moments are when shots come from the edge of a village. You dive for cover, firing back, and when the dust clears, the attackers are gone. You search the houses, but they're empty. You check the alleys, but they wind too far, too many places to hide. You find shell casings, footprints, nothing else. You know the villagers saw it happen. You know they know who fired. But when you ask, they stare back blankly. Faces smooth, lips sealed. They don't answer. Maybe they're protecting their own. Maybe they're protecting themselves. You can't tell, and it eats at you until your chest aches. The fear twists you. You start to see threats everywhere. A basket of rice could hide a mine. A cart could conceal weapons. A well could drop into a tunnel. You look at every person and see a mask. The smile of a child feels like a trick. The calm of an old man feels like defiance. You want to stop thinking this way, but you can't. Survival demands it. You remember the briefings back at base, men talking about winning hearts and minds. Out here, it feels like a joke. You're not winning anything. You're just walking through villages where no one wants you, no one trusts you, and everyone might already be planning your death. You can't shake the thought that the villagers are trapped too, caught between you and the enemy, trying to survive whichever side is staring at them that day. You hate it, but you can't change it. You're just another shadow passing through, another man with a rifle they'll remember long after you've gone. Sometimes you leave the village without incident. No shots, no explosions, just silence and stares. That silence follows you back into the jungle, heavier than any firefight. You replay every glance, every gesture, wondering if you missed something. You wonder if the next ambush will be because of the village you just passed. You can't know. You never will. Other times, the attack comes just outside the village. A sudden burst of gunfire from the trees, mortars slamming into the road, chaos exploding as you scatter for cover. You fire back, adrenaline surging, ears ringing, body shaking. And when it's over, you realise the shots could have been planned hours ago. Maybe even by someone you looked in the eye as you walked past. The thought makes your stomach twist until you feel sick. The villagers remain. They rebuild their houses, sweep the dust, cook their rice, live their lives. You move on, shoulders hunched under the weight of your gear, nerves stretched tight, stomach churning with unease. The line between enemy and civilian stays blurred, smudged by fear and survival, and you know it will never clear. You can't trust. You can't stop. You just keep walking, trapped between villagers and Viet Cong, waiting for the next set of eyes to decide your fate. And the road ahead is long. You don't really notice the medic until you need him. He's just another guy in the line most of the time, carrying the same rifle, the same pack, sweating through the same uniform that never dries. He doesn't look different, not unless you spot the Red Cross armband or the bag slung heavy across his shoulders. But when the first man goes down, suddenly everyone's eyes turn to him. Because out here, he's the closest thing you have to a miracle. The firefight always starts the same way. Sudden, sharp, chaotic. Gunfire erupts, men dive for cover, and then you hear the scream. The sound cuts sharper than the bullets, and your gut clenches because you know what it means. Someone's hit. You keep firing, muzzle flashing, hands trembling, but part of you is listening. Listening to the groans, the calls, the desperate voices yelling, "Medic! Medic!" over and over, until the word itself feels like a prayer. And then he moves. He doesn't wait for quiet, doesn't wait for the fire to die down. He just goes. Crawling, sprinting, stumbling through mud and dust, bullets snapping past his helmet, explosions shaking the ground. You watch him, heart in your throat, as he drops beside the wounded man, ripping open his bag. Hands already slick with blood. The bag is never big enough. It holds bandages, morphine, plasma if he's lucky, a few tools. That's it. Not nearly enough for what this war throws at him. He presses gauze against wounds that won't stop bleeding, wraps tourniquets around shredded limbs, jams morphine syrettes into shaking arms. His hands work fast, practiced, but you see the tremor in his fingers, the sweat dripping into his eyes. He doesn't look up, doesn't flinch at the gunfire. He just works. The smell is thick. Blood has its own weight in the air, hot and metallic, mixing with the sharp sting of antiseptic and the bitter smoke of gunpowder. You gag, you turn your head, but the medic leans closer, face inches from the wound, eyes locked on the task. His uniform is already stained, the red blotches spreading across the green until they blend into a muddy brown. He doesn't wipe it away. There's no point. By the end of the day, his hands will be dyed crimson, no matter what he does. The cries never stop. Men beg for help, voices cracking, hands clutching at him. "Doc, over here. Please, Doc. Don't let me die." They all call him Doc, even though he isn't one. He's not a doctor, not in the way you think of one. He's just a kid, 19, 20, trained quick, and thrown into this nightmare with a bag too small and too few supplies. But out here, he's the only hope. You see it in the eyes of the wounded, the way they look at him, like he's the difference between life and death. Because he is. Sometimes he can help. A clean bandage, a shot of morphine, a steady hand, and the man survives long enough to make it to an evac. You watch the chopper lift off, the stretcher strapped in, the blades thundering as the bird rises into the sky. You want to believe he'll make it. You tell yourself the medic gave him a chance. You cling to that thought because the alternative will crush you. Other times, you see the medic's face tighten, his hands slow. He works anyway, but you can tell. He knows. The wound is too deep, the blood too much, the breathing too shallow. He injects the morphine, whispers something you can't hear, and keeps his hand on the man's chest until it stops moving. Then he pulls the body aside, wipes his hands on his pants, and runs to the next call. There's no time for grief. Not for him. Not for anyone. The rationing is brutal. He doesn't have enough of anything. so he makes choices. Who gets the morphine? Who doesn't? Who gets a fresh bandage? Who makes do with a strip of cloth torn from a shirt? Who gets dragged to the evac? Who gets left behind? He never says it, but you see it in his eyes. He's playing God with no tools and no time, and it's eating him alive. The rest of you don't envy him, but you lean on him. You fight with a kind of reckless edge, because somewhere in the back of your mind, you believe the medic can fix you if it comes to it. You believe that if you're hit, he'll crawl through fire to get to you. And he will, but you don't think about what that does to him. What it means to spend every day elbows deep in blood, listening to screams, watching men die no matter how hard you try. You just keep calling his name when you need him. At night, you see him hunched over his bag, refilling what little he has. He cleans his tools with dirty water, repacks gauze that's already damp, sharpens scissors that are already rusted. He smokes in silence, hands shaking, eyes distant. Sometimes you hear him mutter as if he's talking to the men who didn't make it. Sometimes you hear nothing at all, just the scrape of metal on metal as he forces himself to get ready for tomorrow. He never says much. He doesn't brag, doesn't complain, doesn't tell stories. He just sits, quiet, and you wonder what's going on in his head. You wonder if he sees faces every time he closes his eyes, if he hears the screams echoing in the silence. You wonder how long a man can keep doing this before something inside him snaps. The morphine is both salvation and curse. It dulls the pain, eases the terror, gives men a chance to die quietly instead of thrashing and screaming, but it runs out fast. Too fast. You've seen the medic break the needle in half, trying to stretch one dose into two. You've seen him hold a cigarette in his hand, hesitate, and move to another man instead. You've seen the looks on the faces of the ones he passed over. They know what it means. You know too. And sometimes, late at night, you wonder if he uses it on himself. Just a little. Just enough to take the edge off. To numb the nerves that never stop screaming. You never ask, and he never tells. The medic keeps moving, keeps working, keeps carrying that bag that never holds enough. He doesn't wear rank on his sleeve, doesn't bark orders, doesn't shout. But when someone yells, "Medic," every head turns. Every heart clenches. Because out here, he's the only one who can pull you back from the edge, even if only for a little while. And deep down, you know one day he won't get there in time. The rain comes without warning. 1 second the sky is just a dull grey blur above the tree line. The next, it splits open and dumps everything it has. Sheets of water hammer down so hard it drowns out even the insects. So hard you can't see 5 feet in front of you. The drops slap against your helmet, pound your shoulders, pour into your collar, run down your chest until your uniform clings like a second skin. You're already wet before the storm, always wet, but this is different. This is the kind of rain that feels like it's trying to wash you into the ground. The mud rises instantly. It doesn't take hours or even minutes. Within seconds, the dirt under your boots turns to soup. You sink ankle deep, then shin deep. Every step a sucking pull that tries to keep you there. You wrench one foot free, only for the other to sink deeper. The sound is constant, squelch, slurp, splash, until you can't tell if it's your boots or someone else's. The weight of your pack doubles, water soaking into every canvas strap, every pouch, until it feels like you're dragging a dead man on your back. Blood blends into it all. At first you notice it. The sharp smell. The dark red streak across a sleeve. the puddle under a fallen man. But once the rain starts, it all mixes. The mud turns darker, streaked with crimson, swirling into rivers that run down the road. You step into it without hesitation, because you have to keep moving, and you stop trying to tell where the water ends and the blood begins. Your boots fill with it, your hands drip with it, and your rifle gets smeared with the mixture every time you adjust your grip. The air is heavy with the scent of it. Wet earth, rotting vegetation, gunpowder hanging low, and the metallic tang of blood carried on the rain. The smell gets into your mouth, into your lungs, until you feel like you're drinking it with every breath. You spit, but the taste lingers, thick and coppery, coating your tongue. The rain was supposed to clean things, but out here, it just spreads the filth around, making sure no one escapes it. The fighting doesn't stop for weather. Mortars still thump in the distance. Rifles still crack through the downpour. The rain muffles the sound, makes it harder to place, but it doesn't silence it. You fire back, squinting through the sheets of water, finger slippery on the trigger. Mud splashes into your eyes as you drop low, the grip burning as you blink. You wipe your face with your sleeve, but the sleeve is just as filthy, smearing more grime across your skin. The ground is littered with bodies, both yours and theirs, and the rain doesn't care about them either. It soaks through uniforms, pools in open wounds, washes faces clean only to smear them again with mud. Blood trickles into puddles, diluted but not erased, swirling in little eddies around boots and helmets left scattered in the muck. You step past them, step over them, because there's no choice. The rain keeps falling, and the mud keeps rising, and the war doesn't wait for grief. The cold creeps in, not the kind you know from winter back home, but a different kind. A wet chill that seeps into your bones, makes your teeth chatter, even as sweat still drips from your skin. Your fingers go numb, your legs shake, and you feel heavy, so heavy, like the rain itself is weighing you down. You think about fire, about warmth, about dry clothes, but they're just memories now, things that belong to another life. Out here, warmth is a myth. Dry is impossible. The medics work in the storm, their hands slipping on bandages that won't stick, tape that won't hold. Gauze soaks through in seconds, turning red, then brown, then dissolving into pulp. They shout for help, voices breaking against the roar of rain, trying to hold wounds closed while the storm tears everything apart. Morphine syringes slip from wet fingers, plasma bags leak into the mud, and still they keep working. You help when you can, pressing your hands down hard on a wound, feeling the blood pump hot against your palms, before the rain cools it into a sticky smear. The storm lasts for hours, sometimes days. Time stretches in the grey haze, and you stop knowing if it's morning or night. The sky never changes. Just the same low clouds, the same endless sheets of water, the same sucking mud under your feet. You march anyway, because stopping means sinking. Stopping means freezing. Stopping means dying. You keep your rifle close, try to shield it from the water, but the rain seeps into everything. You clear the barrel, strip it down when you can, but the damp is always there, lurking, waiting to jam it at the worst moment. Sleep is worse. You curl under your poncho, but the rain finds you anyway. It drips through holes, runs under the edges, soaks the ground until your body sinks into it. You wake shivering, covered in mud, your uniform plastered to your skin, your gear heavier than it was before. You dream of dry sheets, but when you wake, Your pillow is a helmet filled with water. Your blanket a damp poncho that smells of mildew. You roll over, but there's no relief. Just more water, more mud, more of the same endless weight. And the rain makes everything slow. Every movement is harder, every step heavier, every shot less certain. You slog through flooded fields, through roads turned into rivers, through alleys where the water runs ankle deep and red. You tell yourself it has to stop, it has to end, but it doesn't. The jungle thrives on it, drinks it, feeds on it. You're the only thing drowning. And still, the war goes on. The radio never shuts up. It crackles, hisses, spits out fragments of words that barely make sense, voices breaking apart in static, and then snapping back sharp enough to make you flinch. You can hear it even when you're not the one carrying it. Somewhere in the line, a man has that heavy green pack strapped to his back, the handset pressed to his ear, and the sound bleeds out into the air like a ghost you can't get rid of. The radio is heavier than it looks. 25 pounds, sometimes more when you add the batteries. The long whip antenna swaying above the jungle like a signal to every sniper with half an eye. No one wants to be the radio man, not really. Carrying it makes you the target. You might as well paint a bullseye on your back. But someone always has to, and he doesn't complain. He just hunches under the load, his shoulders digging raw under the straps, sweat pouring down his neck, one hand clutching the handset like it's both a curse and salvation. The sound it makes is constant, even in silence. A low hiss, a hum, a background noise that gets inside your head until you think you hear it even when it isn't there. The static is like a second heartbeat, unpredictable, sudden bursts that make you wince. Then the voice is cut in, clipped, rushed, full of codes and call signs that barely sound like English anymore. Sometimes you catch the meaning, sometimes you don't. Either way, you know those words can change everything in an instant. Orders come through in bursts, and they're never what you want to hear. Move here. Hold there. Advance. Dig in. Sometimes it's just a set of numbers, coordinates barked out fast, and the radio man scribbles them on a muddy pad before passing them to the sergeant. You watch the sergeant's jaw tighten, his eyes flick to the map, and you know whatever's coming next isn't going to make your day easier. The radio doesn't deliver good news, it delivers work, and work out here usually means danger. Sometimes it delivers nothing at all, just silence. You key the mic, press the button, call for support, and the only answer is static. You shout again, louder, desperate, and still nothing. The batteries could be dead. The signal blocked. The operator on the other end, busy with a dozen other units all screaming into their own radios. Whatever the reason, the silence feels like betrayal. You're pinned down, rounds snapping past your head, mortars thumping closer, and the one lifeline you thought you had is just dead air. You curse it, slam the handset against the mud, and keep firing anyway, because what else can you do? Other times, the radio brings the worst sound of all. Artillery. You hear the forward observer call it in, his voice calm but tight, rattling off coordinates. A pause, a hiss, then the faint thump of guns miles away. Seconds later the world explodes. Shells slam into the earth with a force that rattles your teeth. Dirt and stone blasting into the air, trees splintering into jagged spears. You press your face into the mud, ears ringing, lungs struggling to catch a breath through the dust and smoke. You pray the shells are landing where they're supposed to. You've heard the stories. Sometimes they don't. Sometimes the coordinates are wrong, or the guns are off, and the shells land right on top of you. The radio gives and the radio takes away. Helicopters come because of the radio too. You hear the call go out. Medevac needed. Urgent. Multiple wounded. The words are short, clipped, almost mechanical. But you can hear the edge in them, the desperation barely masked. Minutes later, the thumping of rotors fills the air. The downdraft whipping the trees as the bird drops into a clearing. Men drag stretchers through mud, blood soaking the canvas. Hands clutching rifles even as their eyes glaze. The medics shout, the crewmen haul, and the chopper lifts off again, carrying bodies out of the jungle. You watch it fade into the sky, rotor blades chopping the air, and you know it wouldn't have come without the radio. But the radio doesn't just carry your voices, it carries theirs. You've sat in silence, ear pressed to the handset, and heard chatter in another language bleed through. The enemy, close enough that their signals cross. You don't know what they're saying, but the tone is enough. Calm, steady, confident. You feel your stomach twist because you know they're talking about you. Somewhere out there, not far, they're coordinating, planning, waiting. The static fades, the voice disappears, but the dread it leaves behind lingers all night. At night, the radio is worse. The darkness presses in, the jungle alive with noises you can't identify, and the static seems louder, sharper. You hear voices, but they sound far away, distorted like echoes from another world. Sometimes you can't tell if they're real. You lie in the mud, eyes wide, listening to the hiss and crackle, and you start to imagine things in the noise. Words that aren't there. Names. Please. Ghost whispering through the static. You shake your head, press your palms to your ears, but the sound doesn't stop. It never does. The radio man doesn't sleep much. He curls with the handset, pressed close, ready for the call that might come at any second. He dreams in bursts of static, jerks awake when the hiss changes pitch, his hand fumbling for the button before his eyes even open. He carries the weight of everyone's expectations. If he misses a call, if the line goes dead, men die. He knows it, you know it. The radio may not save you, but without it, you're already lost. You start to hate it, the same way you hate your rifle, your pack, your boots. You hate the weight, the noise, the way it jerks you around with orders that never make sense, but you cling to it too. You listen for it, crave it, because without it, you're just blind men stumbling through a jungle that wants to kill you. The radio is the thread connecting you to something bigger, even if that thread is frayed and weak. You curse it when it fails, thank it when it delivers, and never trust it fully either way. In the end, the radio is just another voice in the war. One more sound layered over the rain, the mortars, the helicopters, the screams. Orders and static, promises and silence. It never stops, never rests, never gives you peace. And you know you'll hear it long after the batteries die. The hiss stays in your ears, the voice in your head, the endless static of a war that doesn't end when the transmission does. The jungle feels different at night. In the daylight it smothers you with heat, mud and insects. At night it swallows you whole. The trees press closer, the canopy blots out even the moon, and the air itself feels thicker, darker, as if you're breathing shadows instead of oxygen. The daytime is exhausting, but at least you can see. Out here after sundown, sight is useless. All you have left are your ears, your nose, and the gnawing fear that you'll never make it until morning. Patrols don't stop just because the sun goes down. If anything, the danger gets worse. Orders come down through the radio, voices clipped and metallic, sending you into the black with rifles tight in your hands. You don't argue. You check your gear, tighten your straps, and slip into the line, each man a faint outline moving forward like shades through the undergrowth. There are no flashlights, no lanterns. Even a match is too dangerous. Light is a target, so you move in near total darkness, guided by touch and instinct, one hand brushing the pack of the man in front of you, the other wrapped around your rifle like it's the only thing keeping you alive. The sounds are louder in the dark. Frogs croak in rhythmic bursts, cicadas shriek high-pitched alarms, something unseen splashes in a stream just ahead. Each noise jerks your nerves taut, or every sound a possible step, a possible cough, a possible enemy lying in wait. You try to separate the natural from the unnatural, the animal from the human, but the line blurs. The jungle is alive in every direction, and the more you listen, the more it feels like it's listening back. The insects are merciless. They don't rest when the sun goes down. Mosquitoes whine around your ears, biting your neck, your wrists, the skin left exposed by your sleeves. You slap at them quietly, muffling the sound, but they keep coming. Ants crawl into your boots. Fire ants that bite so hard your legs burn. Leeches wait in the wet grass, clinging to your socks as you move. You don't notice them until you feel the warm trickle of blood sliding down your ankle. You keep walking anyway, because stopping isn't an option. The darkness plays tricks. Shadows move when nothing stirs. Branches sway without wind. You see figures in the trees, crouched forms just out of reach, only to blink and find nothing there. Your eyes ache from straining, darting left and right, trying to catch what you can't. The men around you do the same. You see their heads snapping toward noises, their rifles jerking up, their bodies frozen mid-step. Then the line creeps forward again, the silence broken only by the soft squelch of boots in mud, and the slow, shallow breaths of men too afraid to exhale. The fear is constant, gnawing, never loosening its grip. You know the enemy owns the night. You've heard the stories, you've seen the aftermath. Ambushes sprung in the dark, mines buried in the trail, tripwires strung when no one could see them, men vanishing into the shadows, never found again. The Viet Cong move like phantoms after sunset, slipping through tunnels, circling around patrols, striking fast and fading faster. You tell yourself you'll be ready, that you'll see it coming, but you don't believe it. No one does. Your rifle feels heavier at night. You hold it tighter, your finger brushing the trigger, knuckles aching from the strain. The weight of every bullet feels doubled, the magazine clinking softly when you shift. You wonder if the noise carries, if someone in the dark already hears it, already knows where you are. You breathe through your mouth, slow and shallow, but even that sounds loud to your ears. The sweat on your skin cools in the night air, leaving you clammy, shivering, despite the heat still lingering in the ground. Sometimes the patrol moves through villages. You pass houses dark and silent, doors closed, windows shuttered. You wonder if people are inside, pressed against the floorboards, listening to your boots scrape past. You wonder if someone's watching through a crack, counting your numbers, waiting until you're gone to whisper to the men in black pajamas who know the trails better than you ever will. You keep walking, eyes on the dark, rifle raised, because wandering doesn't change anything. The worst moments are when the jungle goes quiet. The frogs stop. The insects hush. Even the wind stills. You freeze instantly, Every man in the line sinking low, rifles pointed into the black. The silence stretches until your heart feels louder than a gunshot. You grip your weapon so hard your fingers ache, waiting for the snap of a twig, the burst of gunfire, the sudden explosion underfoot. Sometimes nothing comes, and the line starts moving again, slower, more cautious. Sometimes the silence ends with a scream. Contact at night is chaos. You don't see the muzzle flashes at first, you just feel the air split as rounds whip past your ears. You dive to the ground, pressing into mud still warm from the day's sun, and you fire back blindly into shadows. The jungle erupts in noise, rifles cracking, grenades thumping, men shouting. But you don't see who you're shooting at. You just fire into the black, praying your rounds hit something before theirs hit you. The smell of cordite fills the air, mixing with the stink of sweat and mud, sharp enough to choke. The fight is over fast, always faster than you expect. A burst of fire, a few screams, then silence again. You lie still, ears ringing, chest heaving, waiting for the next wave. It doesn't come. The jungle hums back to life, insects buzzing, frogs croaking, as if nothing happened. You roll onto your side, glance at the men around you, and see the same wide eyes, the same trembling hands. Someone doesn't move. You don't check right away. You can't. The patrol keeps going. The night keeps swallowing. The exhaustion is the worst enemy. Hours drag on, your legs numb from marching, your eyelids heavy as stone. You nod off on your feet, jerking awake when your helmet slips forward, heart hammering as you stumble to catch up. You dream with your eyes open, hallucinations flickering at the edges of your vision. Faces in the trees, movements that aren't there. The line never stops. You march half asleep, body on autopilot, until you forget where you are, why you're walking, what time it is. Only the fear keeps you awake, gnawing sharp enough to cut through the haze. Sometimes you stop to set an ambush of your own. You hunker in the brush, rifles pointed at the trail, waiting for footsteps that may never come. Minutes stretch into hours, the dark pressing closer with every breath. Mosquitoes swarm your face, your hands, biting until your skin burns, but you don't move. You listen to your stomach growl, to your heart pound, to the jungle whisper all around. Nothing happens, nothing at all. When the order finally comes to move again, you're almost relieved. Almost. Dawn doesn't bring relief either. It just means you can see the exhaustion etched into every face, the dirt streaked across every cheek, the blood on someone's sleeve that wasn't there the night before. You march out of the dark and into the grey, eyes stinging from fatigue, body aching from the weight of it all. You tell yourself you made it through another night, but you know the next one waits just ahead, teeth bared, ready to swallow you again, and the darkness is patient. The war doesn't give you breaks, not really, but sometimes, in the stretches between firefights and marches, you find yourself sitting in the mud with nothing to do but wait. And waiting means you start reaching for the few things that make you feel almost human. Cigarettes, rations, jokes that aren't funny, but you tell them anyway because the silence feels worse. Cigarettes are currency out here. They come in little packs tucked inside sea rations, 4 or 5 at a time, cheap brands you never saw back home, Lucky Strikes, Pall Malls, Camels. The paper's thin, the tobacco stale, but you don't care. Out here, smoke is comfort. The ritual is half the point. You pull a cigarette from the crumpled pack, tap it on your helmet, and light it with trembling hands cupped against the wind. The first drag burns your throat, makes your head spin, and for a few seconds the war fades just a little. You blow the smoke into the heavy air, watch it curl and vanish, and you feel something like calm. Everyone smokes, even the ones who swore they never would. You see them give in after their first firefight, their hands shaking too hard to hold a rifle steady until someone presses a cigarette between their fingers. They cough at first, gag, then inhale deeper, as if the smoke can fill the hole the fear carved inside them. After that they're hooked like the rest. You trade them too. A pack of cigarettes is worth more than money. You swap them for peanut butter, for crackers, for a clean pair of socks. Sometimes you trade them for nothing at all, just to see a man's shoulders drop, his face soften for a moment as he takes that first drag. You learn fast that out here, generosity is rare, and a cigarette is one of the few gifts that means something. The smell hangs everywhere, smoke mixing with sweat, with mildew, with a sour tang of mud. You can tell where a unit's camped from a distance, the faint haze drifting above the tree line. You'd think the enemy could smell it too, track you by the scent, but no one cares. If it's a risk, it's one everyone accepts. Better to die with smoke in your lungs than to live without it. The other ritual is food, if you can call it that. Sea rations come in heavy tins, each condented, labels smudged, stacked at the bottom of your pack. You know them all by heart. Ham and lima beans, beef stew, scrambled eggs with ham, spaghetti and meatballs, fruit cocktail. Some are edible, most aren't. You pry them open with your knife, scoop out the contents with a spoon, and chew because you have to. The eggs taste like chalk, the beef like rubber, the fruit cocktail like syrup gone sour. You eat anyway, swallowing mouthfuls of mush that sit like stones in your stomach. Hunger doesn't give you a choice. The crackers are dry enough to choke you. You bite into one and feel it crumble into dust, sticking to your teeth, your throat. You wash it down with a swig from your canteen, the iodine-tainted water making the taste even worse. Sometimes you get peanut butter, thick and oily, sticking to the roof of your mouth until you can't talk. Sometimes cheese spread, sharp and artificial, a paste that looks wrong and tastes worse. And sometimes, if you're really lucky, there's a piece of chocolate, melted, stale, but still chocolate. You savour it like it's the last good thing on earth. The act of eating feels less about food and more about pretending life is normal. You sit in a circle with the others, cans balanced on your knees, cigarettes glowing faintly in the dusk, and for a few minutes it feels like something familiar. Not home, not really, but closer to it than anything else out here. You chew, you swallow, you smoke, and you talk, or at least you try. The jokes are never funny. They're crude, clumsy, sometimes cruel. A wisecrack about the rations. A dirty story half remembered from boot camp. A joke about the sergeant, muttered quiet enough he doesn't hear. Laughter comes anyway, sharp and too loud, the kind that dies off quick but feels necessary. You laugh because silence makes the fear louder. You laugh because the alternative is thinking too much about where you are. Sometimes the jokes are darker. Men make fun of their own odds of surviving. They bet on who will get hit first tomorrow. They laugh about coffins, about body bags, about the ways the war chews you up. It's not really humour. It's defiance, a way of spitting in the face of the thing that's already halfway won. You laugh along, even if your stomach twists, because not laughing feels like admitting defeat. The conversations drift. Talk about home, about girlfriends, about cars, about music. Someone hums a song off-key, another joins in, and for a second the jungle feels little less oppressive. Then the talk fades, replaced by silence, each man lost in his own thoughts. Cigarettes burn down to stubs, cans sit empty, spoons scrape the last bits of paste from the bottom. You lick your teeth, still coated with the taste of tin and grease, and wash it down with another swallow of metallic water. The moments don't last. The cigarettes burn out, the food is gone, and the jokes fade. The jungle presses back in, the war reminding you it never left. But for those few minutes, sitting in the mud with a smoke in your hand and a can balanced on your knee, you felt almost like a person again. Not a soldier, not a shadow, not a body waiting for the next bullet. Just a person. And then the silence grows too heavy, and you pick up your rifle again. You don't plan to keep a diary out here. No one does. It feels childish, like something from school days, something you imagine girls doing back home with little locks and neat handwriting. Out here, you tell yourself you don't need it. Out here, you don't even admit you want it. But when the hours stretch long, and the silence presses in, and your head won't stop replaying every scream, every blast, every shadow that could have been your last, you find yourself pulling out a battered notebook and a pencil stub, and you start to write. The pages are already soft from the humidity, corners curling, lines blurred with sweat. Your pencil smudges across the paper, your words uneven, sometimes illegible in the dim glow of a flashlight held under a poncho. You don't write like a poet. You don't write like a reporter. You just scratch down thoughts as they come, blunt and heavy, without worrying about how they sound. You write about the rain, about how it never stops, how it soaks your socks until your skin peels, how it turns the ground into a pit that swallows you whole. You write about the mud clinging to your legs, pulling you down until every step feels like a battle. You write about the heat, the bugs, the smell that clings to everything, sweat, smoke, mildew, and blood. Things you never want to forget and never want to remember at the same time. Sometimes you write about the men, about the way Johnson snores so loud you can hear him even over the frogs, about how Morales always saves his peanut butter for someone else, about the look on Davis's face when the chopper lifted off without him on it, because there wasn't room. You write their names, their habits, their little quirks, because you're afraid you'll forget them otherwise. And forgetting feels like betrayal. Other times you write about home. You write about your mother's kitchen, the smell of coffee in the morning, the way your dog would scratch at the back door. You write about your girlfriend's laugh, your brother's bad jokes, the street you grew up on. You write about things that don't exist here. Sidewalks, movie theatres, drive-ins. You describe them as if reminding yourself they're real, as if putting them on paper makes them less like dreams and more like things you might see again someday. You don't always write about people or places. Sometimes you write about fear. You try to put into words what it feels like to crouch in the mud with bullets cracking over your head, what it feels like to crawl into a tunnel where you can't breathe, what it feels like to wake up at 3 a.m, convinced the next sound you hear will be your last. The words come out jagged, messy, half-finished. You stop mid-sentence because your hand shakes too hard, or because the memories are too sharp. You close the notebook, shove it back in your pack, and tell yourself you'll finish later. You never do. Some men never write. They just talk, whisper into the dark, mutter to themselves, pray under their breath. Others sketch crude pictures, faces, landscapes, anything that distracts their hands from holding a rifle for once. But the diary is different. The diary is private, hidden, a voice you don't share with anyone else. Not the men around you, not your family back home, not even yourself when daylight comes. And that's why you burn it. You strike a match, shield it with your hand, and touch it to the corner of the page. The paper curls instantly, flames licking across the words, smoke rising into the heavy air. The fire is small, barely enough to warm your fingers, but it feels final. You watch your words blacken, crumble, and vanish into ash. Everything you wrote, the fear, the names, the memories, the truth, disappears before anyone else can see it. You don't burn it because you're ashamed. You burn it because the words are too heavy. If someone else read them, they'd know too much. They'd know how afraid you are, how broken you feel, how much of you has already been eaten alive by this place. You can't let that happen. You can't let the men around you know. You can't let your family know. You can't even let yourself know. Not in the morning when you strap on your gear and pick up your rifle again. The smoke drifts up into the night, faint and thin, disappearing among the trees. You imagine it carrying your words away, scattering them over the jungle, burying them when no one can dig them up. The ashes mix with the mud, with the blood, with the rain, and your secrets vanish into the ground. You tell yourself you'll write again tomorrow. You know you will. You also know you'll burn those words too. Sometimes you wonder what it would be like if the diary survived. If years from now, someone found it, opened it, read your words. Would they understand? Or would they see just the surface? A scared kid scribbling in the dark, rambling about mud and death and silence. You don't know. And you don't care. Out here, survival means forgetting as much as remembering. So you write, and you burn, and you move on. The matches go back in your pocket. The diary, thinner now, goes back in your pack. You lie down in the mud, rifle across your chest, and close your eyes. The war doesn't stop for diaries. The words never change anything. They're just smoke in the night, gone by dawn. And the jungle waits for you to pick up your rifle again. Every man out here carries two weights, the gear on his back and the number in his head. The gear drags you down day after day, but the number gnaws at you every second. It's the count of how many days you've been here, how many days until your tour is up, how many days you might not live to see. You don't always say it out loud, but you know it. You know it the way you know the taste of mud or the smell of blood. It's always there, whispering behind every thought. The rotation is supposed to be 12 months, 365 days, a year of jungle, mud, heat and fear. You tell yourself that's manageable, that if you can survive each day stacked on top of the last, eventually you'll stack enough to go home. But out here, time doesn't behave the way it should. Days don't feel like days. They stretch and collapse, some lasting forever, others gone in a blink. Weeks blur together until you can't tell one from the next. The calendar back home feels like a lie. Out here, a year might as well be a lifetime. Some men mark their helmets. Little hash marks scratched into the paint, one for every day gone. Others carve notches into rifle stocks, draw lines on scraps of paper, keep tally in tiny notebooks hidden deep in their packs. Everyone has a system, some way of measuring the slow crawl toward freedom. You wake up in the morning, body aching, head pounding, and the first thought that comes isn't about the mission, or the mud, or the heat. It's the number. How many left? But the number cuts both ways. If you're at the start, the count feels impossible. You see men with only a few weeks left, talking about home with a spark in their eyes, and you feel hollow. You're still at 300 days, 299. It stretches ahead like an endless road, and you wonder how anyone survives it. Later, when the number is smaller, when you can see the end creeping closer, it becomes something else. Not relief, not hope, fear. Because the closer you are, the more you feel the war reaching for you, as if it knows. As if the jungle itself won't let you leave without taking a piece first. The men call it the short timer's curse. You've made it 11 months, maybe more, and you're counting down the last 30 days, the last 20, the last 10. You walk more carefully, you duck lower, you check every step twice. You're terrified of dying now, not because you're afraid of death, that part has dulled, but because the idea of dying so close to home feels unbearable. You've watched it happen. A man 1 week away from rotation, shot through the chest in an ambush. Another with only days left, gone in a mortar blast. The war doesn't care about your calendar. The bullets don't respect it. And the closer you get to freedom, the more you feel trapped. You talk about home constantly, even if you don't mean to. You describe the taste of food you haven't had in a year. Hamburgers, fried chicken, cold beer, ice cream. You talk about cars, about streets, about music playing on the radio. You picture your bed, your room, your family's kitchen. You describe it so vividly that for a second you almost feel like you're there. But when you stop talking, the silence slams back down and you remember you're still here. The contrast cuts deep, sharper than any knife. Letters from home make it worse. They talk about seasons changing, about birthdays missed, about things that mark the passage of time. Out here, it's always rain or heat, mud or dust. No autumn, no winter, no spring. Just one long stretch of sameness broken only by bursts of violence. You read the letters and realise the world is moving without you. That time exists somewhere else but not here. Your number ticks down, but it doesn't feel like progress. It feels like a trick. Some men plan for after. They talk about what they'll do when they get back, what job they'll take, who they'll marry, what city they'll move to. The plans get more elaborate the closer they are to rotation. They describe cars in detail, the house they'll build, the trips they'll take. You listen, nod, maybe even add your own dream. But inside you don't believe it. Not because you don't want to, but because believing feels dangerous. Hope out here is fragile, and you don't want to break it by holding it too tight. Other men stop talking altogether. The closer they get to their number, the quieter they become. They march with their heads down, rifles tight, eyes darting at every shadow. They don't joke, don't laugh, don't write. They just exist day to day, trying not to attract attention from fate. You see it in their faces, a mix of exhaustion and dread. They're almost home, but they look worse than the ones who just arrived, because they know how cruel the war can be. They've seen too much to trust the calendar. Rotation is supposed to be a promise. Serve your year, do your time, and you go home. But promises mean little out here. A bullet, a mine, a mortar round. Any of them can erase your number in an instant. You think about it constantly, even when you try not to. You dream of home, and you dream of death. And they mix until you can't tell which is closer. You wake up sweating, your chest tight, your hands shaking, and you add another mark to your helmet. Another day gone. Another day survived. Another day closer to a future that may never come. The dream never really leaves you. Even when you're in the middle of a firefight, bullets cracking, mud splashing, bodies falling, part of your mind is still counting, still ticking down the number, still whispering, if I make it through this, I'll be one day closer. It doesn't matter if it's 300 or 30. The number is everything. It defines you more than your name, more than your rank. You are your time left, nothing else. And yet the jungle doesn't care. The war doesn't care. The number is only in your head. Out here, days don't guarantee anything. Out here, the dream of rotation is just that. A dream. You keep counting anyway. You wake up and you realise you survived. That's the measure of success here. Not victories, not territory gained, not some headline back home. Survival. Your lungs still fill with air. Your fingers still clutch the rifle. Your eyes still open to see another grey dawn filtering through the canopy. You made it through yesterday. That's something. But the war doesn't stop at sunrise. The war never stops. The body is here, yes. It moves when you tell it to. It shoulders the pack. It lifts the rifle. It walks when the order comes. But inside, something's been scraped raw. The mind is tired in a way the body can't explain. You can push your legs through another mile of mud. You can drag yourself across another field. You can crawl under barbed wire one more time, but your thoughts feel heavy, too heavy. Like every scream you've heard, every blast you've felt, every friend you've seen fall has piled up in your skull, pressing down until you can barely think at all. The men don't talk about it, not directly. They talk about cigarettes, about rations, about home, but not about what they've seen. You don't say out loud what you still hear when the noise dies down. The last words of a man bleeding out, the thud of a mortar that didn't miss, the silence after someone's name is shouted and no answer comes. You keep it inside, where it festers. The war doesn't leave bruises you can always see. Sometimes it leaves echoes instead, and the echoes are worse. The jungle changes you. You know it when you catch your reflection in a puddle. Your face is leaner, eyes sunken, skin streaked with dirt that never washes off. Your stare is flat, unblinking, older than it should be. 19 years old, maybe 20, but the reflection doesn't look like a kid anymore. It looks like someone who's lived lifetimes in a year. You know the men around you look the same. Hollowed out, hardened in ways they never asked for. The war seeps into habits too. You flinch at the sudden noises, even harmless ones. A branch snapping underfoot makes your stomach twist, your heart hammer, your rifle snap to your shoulder. At night you wake up gasping, hands clawing for a weapon that isn't always there. You can't shake the feeling that something is watching, always watching, waiting for the second you let your guard down. Sleep doesn't come easy. When it does, it's filled with images you don't want. The face of a friend you left behind. The body of a man you didn't mean to shoot. The endless mud, the endless rain, the endless waiting. You wake drenched in sweat. Not sure if it's night or morning. Not sure if you're still dreaming. You tell yourself you'll leave it behind when your number is up. That when rotation comes, when you finally step onto that plane, the weight will lift. You'll go home, eat real food, sleep in a real bed, Walk streets that don't stink of rot and cordite. You'll see your family, your girl, your friends, and everything will slot back into place. That's the story you tell yourself, and sometimes you believe it. But deep down, another part of you knows. The war doesn't end just because you get on a plane. You've seen it in the men who do leave, the ones who rotate out. They look the same as you. Lean, sunken, eyes too old. They board the chopper. They wave half-heartedly. They vanish into the sky. For a while you envy them. Then you think about them sitting in a quiet house weeks later, staring at a wall while their family asks them questions they can't answer. You imagine them lying awake in clean sheets, still hearing mortars in the distance, still flinching at thunder, still smelling the stink of mud and blood in their dreams. You realise the war doesn't end for them either. It just changes shape. And if you're honest, you don't know what home even means anymore. You've spent so long in this place, counting days, marching miles, living 1 second at a time, that the world you left behind feels like something you imagined. The girl you wrote letters to, the car you used to drive, the music you used to play too loud in the summer, they all feel like ghosts. You know they exist. You know they're waiting, but they feel as far away as the moon. You can't picture yourself there. Not really. You can only picture yourself here, rifle in hand, mud up to your knees, waiting for the next ambush. So yes, you survived the day. You'll survive tomorrow maybe. You'll keep walking, keep sweating, keep firing, keep writing in diaries you burn before dawn. Your body will keep going, because it has to. But survival isn't the same as living. Out here, you can make it through every firefight, every march, every night patrol, and still not come home whole. The war takes pieces. A finger here, a memory there, a night's sleep, a friend's face, your own reflection. Piece by piece, day by day, it carves away at you until all that's left is the shell that made it out alive. That's the part no one back home understands. You can survive the day, you can even survive the year. But the war doesn't stop when you rotate out. It doesn't stop when you board the plane. It doesn't stop when you set your rifle down for the last time. The war follows. In your dreams, in your silences, in the way your heart hammers when a car backfires on a quiet street, in the way you reach for a rifle that isn't there when you hear a noise in the dark, in the way you count days even when there's nothing left to count. You survive the day, you survive the war, but you never stop carrying it. Not really. And tomorrow, the jungle still waits. So now you've walked through it. The mud, the rain, the static, the nights that don't end, the cigarettes smoked down to nothing, the numbers scratched onto helmets that never guarantee you make it home. You felt the jungle press against your skin, the city close around you, the tunnels breathe under your feet. You've carried the weight, listened for ghosts, waited through silences that felt sharper than bullets. And maybe you understand why a single day was too much. Why the body breaks under the gear. Why the mind buckles under the waiting. Why survival out here was never just about making it through. You could crawl into the mud and wake up the next morning, still breathing, still walking, and still not really survive. The war doesn't let go. Not for the ones who fell, not for the ones who left, not for the ones who tried to come home. So close your eyes now, let the noise fade. The mortars, the rotors, the static in your ears. Let the mud drain away, the smoke thin out, the smell of blood slip from your nose. You don't need to carry the pack anymore, or grip the rifle until your fingers ache. You don't need to keep counting the days. You've survived this night. And for now, that's enough.